From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training Podcast. I'm going to be your host for this episode, and my name is Bill. Who do we have hosting?
Vicky.
And I'm Jennifer.
And technically, we have another host. We've got the guy who is our host of our Dominated with Dawson segment. That kind of gives away who it is, doesn't it? And he has been a long-time racing driver. He learned on the dirt roads of Alabama how to get his car to go just a little loose. And we basically fill in the rest of it on this episode today. So, Ben, welcome here as your first time as the guest. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
No worries. No worries. So we're going to do an interview of Ben, and then everybody wanted to talk about the HPDE that I just went to last weekend, so we'll have a short little section on that. But mostly we're going to interview Ben. And, for those of you who sit there and say, why am I listening to this Dominating with Dawson? This may make it something you listen to, and this may make it something you skip. It depends on how this goes, but we'll see. So, Ben, if somebody's not familiar with you, could you give a brief introduction, family, personal, professional, racing, whatever?
Sure. My name is Ben Dawson. I grew up all over the South, lived in Alabama a couple of times, Georgia twice, South Carolina twice, North Carolina twice, California one time. What? And
that's not in the South.
Yeah, I love that. It was fantastic living out there. I work in manufacturing. I've always been in manufacturing for the most part. Some customer service in my professional time. I work for a small independent corrugated box maker. I'm the guy that brings all the stuff in and ships it out and schedules the machine. So that's what I do every day.
Awesome.
I'm married to a brilliant scientist who she's the main reason I get to go run around doing a bunch of fun stuff. So we have a little daughter and we have a son on the way in about a month and a half.
Yay!
Yeah, we're excited.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's an exciting time around our house.
That explains a large percentage of your abbreviated race schedule this year.
So that and the plague are a big part of it for sure.
Exactly.
So I grew up in a family that was pretty heavy into racing. My dad and his brother, I guess, were kind of inspired to be hot rod guys in the 50s and 60s, building their own cars in the backyard and that sort of thing. I think they did drag racing and stuff like that. And by the time my dad was in college, he was starting to do autocrosses. There's a famous story of my mom and my dad where my mom went with my dad to an autocross, his 1961 Bug-Eye Sprite. So he was going to do his class or whatever. And some other guy was there, didn't have enough people to run in his class. So he said, hey, Dan, can you get your wife to run in this class? You can just drive my car. And that way we'll have enough people and we can get trophies. So my mom went out there and beat him in his own car, beat his time, and took his trophy. So that's right. So it
sounds like our team.
So I've definitely got racing in the blood. As I was growing up, my dad and his buddies, my dad wasn't driving anymore. My dad had done some oval track driving. I guess in his 20s when he was in the Navy, they were living in and around D.C. By the time I was born, he was down to just kind of crew chief in a car and doing setup and that sort of thing. So we had a series of race cars living in our garage. We had dirt stock cars is what we grew up doing. So that's kind of my background. And they started out with the street stock, and they eventually ended up to those wedge-shaped cars with $10,000 engines and all that sort of thing. So they sort of worked their way up, and we moved out of town, and racing left my life for a while.
They got you back, though.
Oh, I'm back.
Mm-hmm. So did you have goals when you were setting up in your racing?
For me, I was just a huge fan of racing, just watching it on TV. So I grew up kind of idolizing a lot of the circle track stuff we would see on TV. So we watched a lot of NASCAR. I think we went to a couple of NASCAR races. I remember going to Atlanta in 1987 and watching Davey Allison just smoke everybody, just watching him thinking like, how is this guy that much faster than everybody else? And that sort of inspired me. And I didn't really have a goal, but I was just always sort of thought that these people like that. And we would watch Formula One. I remember watching Senna in the 80s and thinking like, there were guys like Senna and Davey Allison who just inspired me. They were that much better. You could tell they were just driving that much better, and I was always inspired by the driving. So I guess I didn't really have a goal, but I was just sort of meandered toward racing in amusement stuff. You know, if I could get on the go-karts at an amusement park and just kind of stay on them, or, you know, as I came up with computer games, I remember in high school and college just getting into sim racing and any of that sort of stuff I could get into. I would just get glued to it. Like if there was somebody in my dorm who had a game, I would just dominate their dorm. They would have to kick me out. They would get off my Sega or whatever. So, and I was always too cheap to own that. So I would always play the hell out of some games.
Just like your sim right now.
You're right. But I, you know, as I started doing that sort of thing more and more, and I got my own computer in college, and I would start, you know, getting my own games or sims. I was like, I feel like I have an aptitude for this. Like I was already a fanatic and loved everything about it. Loved watching, you know, movies and watching racing on TV. But I thought maybe I can actually do it. You know, because I thought I was connecting pretty well with just the coordination and stuff like that on the sims. And I got some pretty advanced sims for the time. I think we're talking like 20 years ago, but I got like Grand Prix Legends, which is still a pretty revered sim that's it's really hard to do. And the more and more I got into it, I thought, man, maybe this is something I could do in real life if I ever got a chance. So I sort of started setting my goals toward getting a kart and getting into kart racing. So I thought that was something something maybe I could attain financially in my early 20s.
Awesome.
So what about cars you've had in the past? Any street cars or race cars? What type of history do you have with that?
Let's see. I've only
Go
had
karts.
really exciting cars. My first car was a 1969 Chevrolet pickup truck. It was on. I think my dad had grafted like an old Power Company Suburban. I guess he took the frame off of that. So it was a 3/4 ton Chevrolet pickup truck, and they had stuck a retired dirt track motor in there. So it had a 4-speed, but the first gear was a granny gear for like yanking stumps out of the yard or something. So you really use second, third, and fourth. So that's what I grew up learning how to drive. So I don't think it had power. It didn't have power steering. So that was a pretty fun adventure to learn how to drive. And I think maybe my parents' point was like, once you can drive this, you can go drive anything. I don't know.
Nice.
But I've since then, I think I had 2 Ford Tauruses. I had a MT5, a Taurus MT5. Do you know what that is?
I know what
Nobody's
the
got
Taurus
any-
is. I know what the
Nobody's
Taurus
got any
is.
love for a Taurus MT5?
I've got
it's only-
Taurus.
Maybe
I know what
only
a
1 year.
Taurus is.
I know what a
but-
Taurus
yeah.
is. Just
Is it
don't-
the jelly
right.
bean one or the spaceship one or the big old
This is
car
the
one?
the very first one. This is, I think I had it in 1986, and the MT5 was manual transmission 5-speed.
Ooh.
So it was a Taurus with a manual and a terrible 4-cylinder. And I went to college like in between 11th and 12th grade. I went to Swanee, Tennessee. It's this little college up on a mountain for summer classes, and I blew the clutch up on the mountain. I drove that car all the way from Swanee, Tennessee, down to Phoenix City, Alabama, with no clutch at all. I got to this big hill in Phoenix City. Car wouldn't go up the hill. I just pulled into a gas station, called my dad. He goes, "You on that big hill?" I said, "Yep." He said, "All right, I'll see you in 45 minutes." But I got pretty close to home. No clutch.
Sounds like us at Charlotte.
Yeah, you guys got down to 1 gear in El Jefe, is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. One,
So-
one,
Going
So
to Fed.
rode it till it died.
My dad also changed a clutch a different time in that car in a Wendy's parking lot, in like his sales, like white Oxford cloth shirt and a tie and nice pants and all that. Didn't get a speck of dirt, drop of oil on him doing that.
that does not sound like us at Charlotte.
No, it doesn't sound like anything I could do either. But that was
Our cars bled. It was
Everything.
a car catastrophe.
Fires, unplanned thermal events. You guys left it all on the track, didn't you? Might as well just left it all at the track, really.
We had a whole season at one race.
We're going to be working the whole season.
I know. So when you were on the teams, did you have an official team that you were racing with? And what was your position on that? Were you the orchestrator, the person that kept everybody? Usually a person of manufacturing has a very organized brain, and they're usually
In charge of unplanned thermal events.
I like to leave that brain at the office and be a total dummy at the track. For me, when we're talking about amateur endurance racing, which is what I've done mostly in the last 10 years, I'm sometimes I'm the instigator, sometimes I'm the guy who has the car, sometimes I'm joining a team as an arrive and drive. I get a fair amount of chances to go drive other people's cars, which is nice. In that case, your role is you just show up with your gear bag and jump in the car. Some of those times the team might expect you to wrench a little bit. Some of those times, sometimes I've joined a team where they're just completely shocked that I would pick up a wrench like a Lemons team. I went race with a Lemons team, and their protective shroud that they had built around the radiator out of sheet metal also punctured their radiator. So I noticed that the temperature was creeping up. So they were surprised that I even noticed the temperature gauge was creeping up, much less I helped them change the radiator and change brake pads at night. So I guess the role is just whatever it has to be to get the car on the track and running. That's always been my answer. So luckily, if I'm living right, my role is all I got to do is show up and drive, and nobody has to talk to me. That would be perfect. But sometimes you got to go a little deeper than that, right, guys?
Sometimes. Like every time we go.
Sometimes.
but yeah, so I guess if I had my choice, I would just be rich enough to get off the helicopter and go fly back to Monaco would be my choice. But as it is, I got to rich on a bunch of stuff. I'm currently lazily building the Spec E46s. I don't plan to be anywhere in public until well into 2021. So I'm not in a big hurry, and I get to race other people's stuff. But yeah, I mean, my role is fabricator, whatever I got to do to get my butt on the track eventually. Fabricator, dad, whatever.
Fabricator and dad.
I'm just saying, whatever it takes to get a car.
Man, I wish I could be use my mom's status to get on a track.
I'm just saying, whatever role I got to do to get the car to the track that next weekend, even if it's extra dad stuff to get myself down there, no credit.
He did assist in the fabrication of the upcoming baby, so I mean, it's related.
There he is.
That's right. That's right. I'm taking some credit because the first one we had is extra cute, so I take extra credit that I don't deserve for how cute she is.
So, I mean, what is your history with the endurance and your educations with the HPDEs? How much have you been driving?
Let me bridge the gap a little bit there. So I was a guy who was just on the computer, huge race fan. Thought, maybe I can do this. Also, I just started being aware of this. So this is late 90s, like 99, 2000. I got out of college, and I'm thinking, I really want to see if I can lay my hands on some actual racing of some sort. It seemed to me like the most attainable thing at the time would be karts. I would have loved to have done like shifter karts, but they were pretty expensive, and they weren't around in the Southeast. I was in South Carolina at the time. So the closest thing to me was going to be like the oval track karting, and I just figured I could eventually find somebody's used cart just to see if I could take care of the care and feeding it, not even the driving. I was just like, I'm not even sure I can drive. I just want to see if I can keep one alive. So I bought somebody's old cart and sort of started there. This is like 2002, 2003. So that's how I got my actual butt onto some actual racing equipment. I bought somebody's retired cart. What I didn't realize is how hyper competitive karting is. So like if you bought somebody's 3 or 4 year old chassis, you might as well be just rolling around in the back for the most part, which I was. I bought somebody. He's like, "Yeah, I won the state championship with this thing in Mississippi, 3 years ago." I was like, "Great, I'm going to jump out there and dominate." Turns out what you won with in Mississippi doesn't matter in North Carolina because the dirt's totally different, and one chassis that works up there won't work that. It's karting is a whole bizarre rabbit hole of knowledge and stuff to go into. I learned a whole lot doing karting that I'll never apply anywhere else, but I learned a lot about racing right there at karting, mainly how expensive it is. Like I went bankrupt doing go-karts, like just, like 20s bankrupt. All of a sudden, like I got an overdraft and I was like, I spent more money than I actually have for the first time in my life racing cars. Cause that was kind of my situation, but that's how I physically got myself into racing and in doing karting, I learned a lot about vehicle setup and that sort of thing that does translate into what we do today. A lot of the stuff playing doesn't, but that's where I got a first taste of it. And when I won my first heat race, I was like, yes, I am doing this forever. You can try to pry racing away from me, you might as well kill me because I'm doing this now. Like the first time I had any success, maybe the first time I guess it was the first thing I would have done would have been won a heat race, and I won a few feature races. I stayed in karting for a couple of seasons before I realized it was way too expensive to be competitive. Like the guys who were competitive were guys who were cutting all the rubber off their tires down to like the last few thousandths just to have the least amount of weight and the least amount of roller resistance. Like karting is a game of tiny increments and just everything you can do. So you really can't spend your way to success in karting. And I was just like, I'm never going to spend the kind of money yet, or have the kind of money. These guys would have engines down one wall of their trailer. They would have tires down the other wall of their trailer. I was the only guy out there in a short bed F-150 just out there by myself doing it. And I was like, hey, if I could win a race doing this by myself against these people who are spending a bunch more money and have all these people helping them, I thought maybe this is something I can keep going with. So that's kind of how I jumped from karting into cars. I did karting as an experiment just to see if I had any aptitude for the driving or the other crap you have to do to get to the driving.
Wow. Well, so since 2020 was a bust,
Oh
what
yeah.
does
Hells yeah.
what does your 2021 race season look like? I mean, what do you think after
He's got a
post-COVID?
baby coming. There's no race season. Who are you kidding?
No, I let's see. I think it was maybe just a month and a half after Nora was born. I raced with Chump Car at AMP. So luckily I have a long-standing relationship that's been built around motorsports with my wife, and she understands that that's a required part of our existence. So she's down with it. Luckily, she's pretty supportive, and that's been a really big blessing. If I got to get away to the track, I mean, I don't do it all the time, but we try to plan way ahead. If there's a race coming up that's worth doing, I can get to it, even with the baby. But I don't know. I do need to buckle down, and I'm like to the point where I need to get people to come in and weld in reinforcements under my Specky 46 build, and that's just a grind. So I don't feel like getting on my back and doing it. So anyway, I just need to finish building this car. I got most of the stuff to put it together and get it in the cage shop. But I would like to get this Specky 46 out on the track and start doing some sprint racing with it as soon as I can. That's the next thing I hope to be out doing in 2021. Maybe a little bit of endurance racing with my own team, the Winsome Racing. We have a Winsome Racing has an E30 that we race, and my teammate Reed has an E36 M3 that we plan to do a little racing, like maybe with AER or somebody else. It's a little too, it's way too fancy for Chump Car or Lemons, but we can race it somewhere. So that's kind of what we're planning on doing. But yeah, I mean, and of course, street racing, all the time street racing. There's money on the line. I'm going to get down there with my 6-cylinder X5, and I'm going to take that drag racing money on the street, vigilante street racing. It's pretty much all I do. My bank account is stuffed with 20s and 100s I've won from street racing. You would not believe how fast that X5 is. It goes 60.
It does. It goes all the way from 0 to 60, all the way.
So, do you have like a racing philosophy?
Yeah. I mean, for me, my racing philosophy is 100%. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it. I don't care what else is going on. I don't care about results. If it's not a good time, I'm not coming. So,
That's a good philosophy.
Has it always been that way, or have you just ended up there?
Funny you asked. Funny you asked that question. I got totally off the rails when I was in karting. I got way off the rails, and like every time I was successful, I was like, all right, I got to be wearing that pair of boxer shorts with the peaches on it. I got to be wearing this shirt. This is the shirt I was wearing, under my jacket when I won. Like my routine, all the superstitions just exploded. And it was like, everything is like, I greased the bearings this way, so I got to make sure I always take this extra step. And like my prep routine was like taking me into like 2:00 in the morning on a weeknight, trying to like prep tires. There's all this Mr. Wizard stuff that went into chemical prep. I'm sure I shortened my life with all the chemicals I inhaled, and so eventually I had to kind of scale it back. So, but I mean, I was wasting all this time. I was out there till 2:00 in the morning. Like as soon as dinner was over, I was out there working on the go-kart and massaging it, and doing probably unnecessary BS to it, just because halfway through superstition, halfway with being obsessed with results. And I was like, because I got to a pretty good level within my class where I could expect to be pretty successful. And by hook or by crook, I had a pretty fast cart. And so I got to used to where I was like, hey, if I didn't go out and at least have a shot at a win, I felt like it was a waste. So I definitely got too obsessed with the results. And by the time I sold all my stuff from karting, I was like, either I'm going to find something fun or I'm not doing any racing. It just got too much in my head. It was just it was more in my head than at the track.
Do you think that a lot of drivers starting out end up there at some point before they just kind of realize, geez, I'm just, I got to make a change in order to enjoy this sport again?
I've never had that exact conversation with anybody, but I could imagine it being that way. And I mean, but also what I can tell you is there's a lot of people who get stuck there and never leave. Those are the people if that's most of who's in the track, I'm not coming because I only going to come for a good time. And those people are not good to be around the track. It's just not fun. I mean, but they deserve a place in the track too, and their own events. It's just not my thing. But the people who are obsessed with results, they're out there and they fully feel like what they're doing is as valid as me just coasting through and like, hey, I just want to have fun with this. I mean, I don't have any goals as far as like I need to get picked up by this team or that team or anything like that. I've already done more stuff than I ever expected to be able to do on a racetrack.
So I'm just warning you now, Ben. Okay, I've heard the go-kart stories. I know the racing history. If it's a boy and you do get to the Pinewood Derby, you really need to rein it in, man, because you're gonna be polishing those axles. You're gonna be sculpting that body.
He's gonna be massaging the car
think
until 2:00 in the morning, making sure
IOE.
it's a good one.
Go
We
for
don't
the
remember
IOE.
the Pinewood Derby. Good
You
Lord.
guys think, we didn't go back far enough in our racing history. I've been ejected from a win for cheating in a Guy Star and Pinewood Derby. Okay, it turns out it was not cheating. It was just something that wasn't defined. It was like, hey, you didn't say we couldn't lengthen the wheelbase. But I still got my trophy. I had a win, and I ended up getting a bodacious Big Bear for a good attitude about losing my win trophy. Not lying, I got a trophy still around that says bodacious Big Bear Ben Dawson. He just stole my trophy from me.
It shouldn't be dominating with Dawson. It should be that.
Sounds like we need a T-shirt.
Big bodacious.
Man, you guys really dig deep on this podcast. I didn't know it was going to get so personal. But no, that 100% happened. Then we came back within the rules and whooped them next year. My brother always won like the prettiest car. And I was talking, my dad was like, all right, we're going to set yours up to be the slickest axles. And just whipped everybody to death. We would shave it down until it was like a pencil size, so you could just be nothing but weight pretty much.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
How big was your Hot Wheel collection?
That was my brother, really. Like, I would have a few toy cars, but I don't care about cars. I don't really even like cars that much. I just want to race. So if it was racing office chairs, or if it was racing lawnmowers, racing hand trucks, whatever it is, I'm going to race it. I mean, and I enjoy. There's some stuff about cars I
Let me
enjoy. But
see.
like, almost every teammate I have is always like, oh, check out this car. I'm like, whatever. I am not that much into cars. Except
Jennifer, do you remember us with the skateboards with the boxes tied to the top of them?
Oh gosh, yes.
That's called your Pinto. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I have also had a Monte Carlo SS.
Ooh, which
I had
year?
a 1984 Monte Carlo SS. So I had
Ooh.
a 305 with the dome top pistons. I had a miserable 3-speed, but I got that thing. I definitely got rubber in all 3 gears in the range. That thing had like 112 horsepower. It was pretty fun. It was
3-speed on the floor?
No, I think it was column shift, if I'm thinking back.
See, I had a 79 Cutlass Supreme 3-speed on the floor, buddy.
Ooh, hot.
That's right.
That's what I wish I had. But yeah, this was an automatic on the column. I'm pretty sure.
No.
But that was a cool car.
You don't wish you had it. Trust me. It made truck clutches seem light. Yeah.
So with all of your experience and knowledge, what are your thoughts or tips for newbies to just get off their sofa, get off their butt, and go and get on the racetrack?
I would say the thing I did not know, the thing I would tell everybody who's thinking about doing their first track event is take whatever you own. Whatever car or minivan, probably even small truck you have is going to be okay. Take it out there. You don't need special tires. I think you do need special brake fluid. I would say always pump in the high temp brake fluid. It's about the only thing you need to go do a driver's education event aside from your safety equipment and helmet and go do it. I think if I'd understood that before I got sucked into karting, and I think if I had understood how accessible it was, I probably would have gone straight to car stuff. I'm grateful that I went through karting and did some oval track stuff first, because it's definitely giving me a view into setup that I don't think a lot of road racers think about, which I've used to my advantage, I think. But, so I wouldn't trade karting, but I think I would have gone straight to track day stuff if I had known it was that accessible. That's what I would tell people is it's not as hard to get into as you think. If you need to borrow a helmet, you can borrow mine.
It seems like it's kind of the natural progression for a lot of people is go karting and then like endurance racing, or a lot of people start out in karting.
For me, I think I started.
Nikki and I started out on skateboards with boxes.
How hard is it to beat a box in a race?
Come race the E30, you'll find out, because it is a box.
That's true. It is. Awesome. Very well. So
Bill,
go ahead.
sorry, so I don't think you were asking about endurance racing. I think I missed the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. It's basically like we're going to do like a good, the bad, the ugly. So what should they do? What shouldn't they do? And any
Okay,
ugly
so yeah. I
like
stories,
that.
any
So
ugly
it's-
stories like race bar. You know?
How did you run across race bar? First of all,
that's a funny one. So that was one. There have been times throughout my endurance career started out with an arrive and drive because I had instructed a guy at VIR, actually where I do most of my junk, and this guy was like, hey, a buddy and I are going to come run the chump event. This is like 2012, I think. It's like, hey, we're going to run the chump event. Do you want to come drive with us? And so I was like, oh, yeah, definitely. Because I had been doing HPDEs and instructing forever. So I was dying to get into an actual race, but I didn't have a bunch of money. So it was kind of a chance to take one shot at doing it. So this was the Chump North Course 14-hour, and I got in this car that turned out to be a really controversial Chump car. It's a MR2, second gen MR2 that got swapped to V6 into. He's
Ooh,
still
that's
out there
gonna be
racing.
fast.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about it, didn't know anything about the politics and the series. I was just coming to drive this guy's car, and it was so fast. I was passing people in the grass. I was passing people everywhere. I think it was a rocket ship. But that's kind of how I got started into it. So since then, in between having my own team out in California and having our team here, there have been plenty of times where your own car might be blown up or disabled or something like that, and that's how you end up going to race other people's stuff and that sort of thing. So that's sort of been the progression for me. It's how I end up getting in other cars. And I would recommend new people, if you're looking for something like that to do, go on the forum. The Champ Car Endurance has a forum section. So does Lemons for sure. I'm not sure about the other ones, but a human resources section where it's like teams looking for drivers looking for teams, and that's how I found Race Bar. I think it was a VIR North Course race coming up, and I wanted to race it, and our car was down for whatever reason. I think back then we were running an ADA engine in our E30, and we just kept melting the head down all the time. So it might have been one of the times we had the head off and just didn't feel like messing with it. But I wanted to race. It was 2017, very late in the year. Oh, 2016, very late in the year. Not my favorite late in the year of ever. I was pretty freaked out, and I saw these guys on the Chump forum. I was like, yeah, I'll just go race with these dudes. It turned out it seemed like they were not that serious about it, and I'm here for fun. I've been here for fun for most of my racing career. I was like, look at that, like this would be fun. Like, because I don't care. Like, I don't want to go out. Like, I mean, if I get on a competitive team, I think that's a little more important to me these days, just because I don't have as much time. But back then, I didn't have a baby and I had more time, so like, I'll just go screw around with these turkeys, and that's what I did. So they needed a driver, and I kind of linked up with them. It turned out there were a bunch of younger Navy guys. I think they're all probably 5 to 10 years younger than me for the most part. And we just went out there. They'd already blown the head gasket off the car by the time I got to it. So it's pretty like, it's fun. We had a good time. They're crazy. These people are crazy.
we thought you got kidnapped.
No, I was just looking for a car to race. They kind of found them last minute. I wanted to go race this race in December, and I kind of was sitting around in late 2016 with a crushed spirit, and I was like, I might as well just go race this piece of crap and just meet some new dudes. So that's what I was doing, just because our own team, the Winsome Racing E30 was down or whatever. But for the most part, we raced that car. We've raced it at Lemons and Barber and CMP a couple times, at least three times. We've raced it down at Road Atlanta with WRL, that car. What else have we done? Chomp a bunch of times at VIR. We don't ever do 24-hour races because we love ourselves. Like if there's a 24-hour race coming up, I've done it a couple times. But I don't think I need to do it anymore unless it's like a team that really thinks they can, win. Because that's a pain.
That's like work.
Yeah. So unless there's really a payoff, I don't think I want to screw around with the 24 again. But it's cool. It's cool to go do it at least once. But that's kind of how I end up finding people like Race Bar and that sort of thing. It's just because sometimes looking for it. Sometimes people ask me like, "Hey, do you want to come drive?" So sometimes I can do it. Sometimes I can't.
All right. So what would be something that a team shouldn't do? Like, what would be bad to do if they're going to get started? It could be just
some of the biggest mistakes they make when you get started.
I think you've made it. I know I've made it.
No, we never made
trying
mistakes.
We were as a fairly new team as Winsome Racing, like 2015, 2016, and I had a Miata that I already had, built. It was pretty close to being a race car. I think we put the kill switch in it, and it was ready to roll. And we had this E30 that my friend Ian, who does the YouSuckAtRacing.com and wrote You Suck at Racing, which is a book you can buy on Amazon.
We have it.
He gave me his E30. He's like, you can just take this E30 and build that. So we had a chance to build another race car. So we were just like, we'll be a 2-car team. We'll get all our buddies to come race. And even before I had a kid, I was like, this is a serious pain. So, we did that a handful of times just to kind of get buddies to come race with us. And it was a good time to unite people that we liked a whole lot, loved, and wanted to hang out with. But it also just, we're like, hey, we got to get to sit down in one car. And just, if we need a sub driver or something like that, we'll get it. But that was our big mistake early on. We perpetuated it for a few races, more than a few races, before we realized, like, hey, this isn't worth the effort of, getting two trailers together and all the other crap. We don't do anything like you guys do as far as frills. Like, we are just there. If you want to eat something, go to the snack stand. Don't talk to me. Pretty much just get in the car. Like, there is nothing extra with us. Even with that, we're like, even with that bare bones effort, just get in the car on track, we were like, it's too much. At least I can say this about myself. I am very lazy. The rest of my team, I can't speak for them. There may be a laziness quotient there too, but I don't want to talk bad about it. But I am very lazy and don't want to mess with two cars anymore. So I think that's a big one to avoid, because it's easy to get eyes bigger than your stomach once you've gone and done it. It's like, hey, we nailed it. Like, I think you guys had a couple of really good experiences right off the bat. And you're like, hey, we got this. Let's build more cars. And it's like, whoa, it could be bad too. So that's a bad. That I would watch out.
I'm right here, man. I can hear you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I know. I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but I think that's a common mistake people make, is they end up doubling up or trying to get more people ripped in. So I would watch out for that.
We were going to do 3.
I know.
Fools.
I had to put the brakes
Silly
on him.
Bill.
silly
man.
If it's worth doing, it's worth
Silly
overdoing.
Billy.
That's right.
If it's worth doing, it's worth the girls overdoing.
Oh, stop. I'm right there too. All right. So we need an ugly story. Got any ugly stories?
Yeah, I'll start with a relatively light one first. But I think
Start with Garage Heroes in Training.
I'm going to start with the lighter of the two that came to my mind when I was thinking about good, bad, and the ugly. And when you hear this, you're going to be like, oh, this is the light one. This is a podcast for relatively new people to racing, so I think they should hear pretty real stuff. But overall, racing is largely positive. But when I moved back, we moved to California for a couple of years while my wife was doing residency. And we moved back to this area. We were living in a house that it was on a hill. So the entire driveway was a steep hill. And even the cul-de-sac down at the bottom wasn't flat enough to work on cars. So I didn't really have any place to work on the Miata. And we were trying to get it ready to go run a couple of WRL races. They were just going to start the series in this area. And just as a little quick side note, I still got the car there. We still won the first WRL race in the Southeast overall. With it. But in the meantime, we were trying to build the E30 over this guy's shop. Like my teammate Reed's like, hey, I know this guy. He's done a couple track days. And so I went and instructed this guy one time at VR, and it was like, hey, I got this shop. You guys want to it's got all this extra room. You can just, use the lifts, you can bring your cars over here, build the cars, whatever you want to do. And then, he's going to come race with us if we needed him. And it was a really sweet setup. We just had to go like 40 minutes away, and I could go leave the cars over there and work on them. So it seemed like an ideal setup. But as the race we were building until it got closer and closer, this guy got sort of weird. And I'm not going to name anybody, but the guy got weirder and weirder. And I was like, hey, so how about I just come get the cars? We'll just figure out a new place to get them. And he's like, well, you owe me for all this lift time. And, for this guy's time, he, told you he fixed this wheel stud. So now it's going to charge you 3 hours of labor from this guy. So he got mad about something. I was never even clear about what he got mad about. But for some reason, he got mad at us. And he tried to hijack all our stuff, hijack two whole race cars. I was like, what's going on? The plant manager where I work is this kind of roughneck biker dude. And I was like, hey, man, what would you do in this situation? He's like, well, you got 3 options pretty much. You can go over there and just beat their ass and take your stuff, which I don't know how to beat anybody's ass. I'm a pacifist. And he goes, or you can, he's like, you can call the cops and then probably still not get your stuff back. Or he goes, you can go over there and beat their ass and take your stuff and then call the cops. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So none of those are really my options. So eventually, luckily, I've got a pretty diplomatic teammate who's able to just go over there with some of the big fellas he works with. Because it was a situation where it was like Ben Dawson cannot go back over there. Whatever it was, this guy was mad at me. It turns out, I think the guy had some stuff going on mentally that has nothing to do with race cars or me, but he fixated on me and was really mad at me. So it wasn't a deal where I could even go over there and try to fix it myself. So luckily, my diplomatic teammate Chad shot over there with some bigger fellas where he works with a couple trailers, and we got our stuff back. But that was a pretty ugly scenario, not something that I expected after years and years of racing cars and doing Ds and having pretty successful, honest times with endurance racing, just have that pop up. So that was a really bizarre, ugly thing that I didn't like. It was a pretty bad association for racing. So the pinnacle of the ugly, I forgot, was we get all the way out there to CMP. This guy tows out there with us. And so we had the Miata. We were going to race the Miata at this WR race. This guy tows out there with us, tows it with his car, and I'm out there with my car because I have like a little station wagon, so I couldn't tow anything. So he's going to race with us, and it was 3 of us that were going to race. We get out there, And he unhooks the trailer, and we look around after we're in the tech line. We look around, and his truck is gone, but my trailer is there. It was my trailer and his truck. That's what it was. And so I call him like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Hey, do you have to go get gas or something?" And he just goes, "No, I'm on the way back to Raleigh." And we were in South Carolina, so we ended up having to get a club racing buddy, the guy who started the Specky 46 series. In fact, we're like, "Hey, buddy, can you come over here with the trailer? Because we're gonna need." All right, I guess we just needed his tow truck. We just needed his truck that he could tow with. But yeah, we're like, "Hey, bring your helmet and your gloves and your suit, win a race with us, and then tell me back to Chapel Hill." So that was pretty ugly. Like the guy stranded us, like, a state away with just a race car and a trailer. So yeah, so racing can get pretty ugly and weird. So that's my big ugly. My second biggest ugly was when I was racing karts. There was a family with a pit next to me, and we were all kind of friendly. Usually we kind of pit, and there would be people in the next little pit stall. It was just open pits, kind of with a covered pavilion deal. And they had air and stuff like that. So each one was sort of marked off. And there was a family that I got along pretty well on either side. But the family on one side had a drunk uncle who would show up, and this guy would get progressively drunker as the day went on. I guess he was like, "Hey, I'm at the kart races, so I'm gonna start at 1 or whatever." And so he would just be piling on beers all day. And by the time the sun went down, he would be walking around yelling, "Hey, white power, white power!" And at first you're like, this is kind of like when Chappelle's show was on TV, and they were sort of like jokes like that. Like Dave Chappelle made that joke. You're like, still not. I'm not sure if I should laugh at it, but definitely this old white drunk uncle next to me running around the pits yelling white power. At the time, I guess I was in my mid-20s at the time, and I was just like, what? But he would say it in like a call and response. He would say it, and then he would look to me like, right? And I'd be like, nope. I think that was pretty ugly, and that was one of the very early on racing experiences I had where I was like, hey, maybe this is kind of what it's my own opinion, not anybody else's necessarily, that the people in circle track racing are, they had to have a sheriff out there at the kart races, and they had to have security or the sheriff at a road race. But they had to have the sheriff out there every night at the kart races because there was always going to be fights and stuff like that, and people running around yelling rough stuff like white power. So. That was pretty ugly for me. It definitely wasn't something maybe want to stay around oval racing. But I kind of always thought my aptitude was in road racing, but I just sort of did oval track racing because it was what was most available to me. But that's pretty ugly, and I want to be honest. So y'all can edit that out or not.
That's no fun. Even if Chappelle or somebody like Eddie Murphy or anybody who comes to mind can get away with a joke, sometimes other people cannot get away with a joke, but it didn't sound like that was too much of a joke. So yeah,
that's what I was going to say, is I don't think the guy was joking. This is what kind of freaks me out. So it's pretty ugly, and I just hope that I was able to learn from that and be a better example for folks at the track than certainly that guy. He sets a pretty low bar, but I'm hoping I'm influencing people in a better way than that at the track.
You should be able to step right over that bar. No worries.
Okay, so let's take a break just for a moment, and let's talk a little bit about Bill's Ohio trip.
Enough about me. What do you think about me?
Mid-Ohio. How was Mid-Ohio, Bill?
Bill, you went alone this time, didn't you?
I did. Nobody loves me. They just kicked me to the curb. Jennifer's like, "Oh, I can't go race. I got broken ribs." What kind of excuse is that? Vicky's like,
I text you.
I know you did text me.
Vicky's I totally forgot to ask how you're doing. Let me stop for one second. Are you okay, Jen? You feeling better?
I'm getting better every day.
I'm sorry. We just jumped in. I jumped in the middle of a conversation with y'all and did not get back around to asking. Sorry.
No, that's fine. She's right now. She's sitting in her bed, which is a chair.
For the next foreseen future.
Hasn't gone horizontal yet. So.
Yes, we're calling it the vertical bed.
Vertical bed.
For a little while. I am more determined than ever, though.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. We can't.
It sounds to me like you're the one of this whole crowd that can drive, so stick with it.
Exactly. The bar is pretty low. You could get right over that one too. You just need a little more seat time, a little less wall time.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, who put that wall there? I don't know.
Wasn't there before.
Jennifer found the wall. Nobody was looking for it, but she found it. It's no fun not getting her to laugh with broken ribs. That's just way too much fun.
I can laugh now.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I missed my window.
Jennifer, we were in the mall, and Jennifer said, just made a joke, and she laughed so hard at her own joke, she had to stop and grab onto something. And I'm
So
like,
bad.
she forgets.
I can't even imagine going to the mall. Y'all are crazy.
True. So what do you want to know? What do you want to know?
You know
I want
what?
to know what you
what is
drove.
I was driving. It's basically a stock Toyota 86. It's a 2017. The only thing we changed was I put on RS4 tires, and we
Shocker.
upgrade
I
the
put
brake
on
fluid.
RS4 tires.
There you go.
Not be confused.
Wow. Okay. Very well. Yep. Anyway,
What kind of brake pads?
we use ST43s.
Tight.
So, and then we had the racing brake fluid. So, I think it was.
How are those? Are the SC43s good when you get into ABS? Do you like that feeling?
They're the only thing we've raced is ST43s. We've only done street pads and those, so I don't really have a good, like, I can't compare them to a Hawk or the Portafields or
Right.
the other brands. So I haven't had any problem with them. They seem to last a good long time. They stop everything we want to stop, and they don't seem to fade. So the only time we've had issues is when we had the brake caliper itself was rubbing on the inside of the rim, and it would just generate heat, and then occasionally the brakes catch on fire and stuff like that. But besides that,
you're not still scraping the rims, are you?
no, we fixed that. We figured out what that problem was after several brake calipers.
So but when you drive the FRS like at Mid Ohio, are you getting into the ABS?
On a couple turns, I try not to get into it. I try to stay just shy of it.
Right.
So I think I hit it once all weekend, but there's one long back straightaway where you're coming into it's almost a 90 degree. I think it's like 95 or 100 degrees, but it's at the end of the big straightaway, and you got to go right, and that's where you're going to light them up. So it's a good turn.
You guys know that it's okay to use your ABS on track, and sometimes it's not a bad deal. You can totally just jump right into your ABS. I planned like the spec car I'm pointing to that nobody can see. I plan to just wail on the ABS anytime I feel it's appropriate. Just so you know, just so anybody listening knows, ABS, if your car's got it, you can use it on the track.
Yes.
They do drills when we were doing the HPDEs and to use your anti-lock brakes.
Yep.
So I try not to use it and try to get as close to it as I can, and occasionally, and one turn that we were talking of just before, that was one of the turns where I was trying to figure out exactly where my brake point was, and right between I think it's between the 5 and the 4, or it might be just past the 4. It's a crest of a hill. So you got to kind of, once you start going down the hill, it's like my increments get shorter and shorter and shorter, because I don't want to, that right past it is this thing called China Beach. It's this big old sand pit, and I don't want to go swimming on the beach. So
it's not a fun beach to visit.
Not a good beach, no.
So, what is the track like?
What's the track like? It's a little hillier than it would appear. I mean, you think of Ohio, you don't think of mountains. It's got a couple long straightaways. It's got some sweepers. It's got a lot of turns that have like a crest in the middle. So you'll have positive camber towards one side and negative camber towards another side.
That's wild.
Which gets a little funky. And then there's a couple sections where it's a high horsepower track, and then there's a couple technical sections. So it's kind of a split personality track. I'd say in the end, it's more of a horsepower track than technical track. Like, you can't make it up in the technical section. The horsepower will just get too far ahead of you. But it's a great track, and I actually prefer the club track to the pro track. The club track has a chicane in one of the straightaways going into a 180 degree turn. So you're going down a straightaway, and then you have a chicane to the right, and then back left, and then you go into what they call keyhole, which is a 180 degree turn onto that big long straightaway. I actually prefer having the chicane there. It seems to be more entertaining because, at least personality wise, I prefer turns than, what's my top speed. I don't care. Anybody can go fast in a straight line. I like going around turns and feeling the G's. So to me, I like the technical side of the track more than the, okay, let's go through the gears now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it's a good car. It's a good track.
The club track is where you go around turn 1, and then on the way to the next thing, that's where the chicane is after turn 1. Is that right?
Chicane's off to the right, and then you go into Keyhole, which is that 180-degree turnaround.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, for somebody like me in a low-power car, I think of the chicane as one more shot to get around somebody.
Exactly, and it slows everybody down. It kind of evens things out. There was one car that was able to get to 165 on the back straight.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and I was at I got the 113. I think I might have got the 114. I haven't checked all my data. So you just can't make that up. It's
Now, have you driven this track before? I know you've been to Ohio before. Is it the same track?
It's the same track. This was my second time there. So it was the first time I went there, it was a little confusing because with and without the chicane, obviously the turn numbers change. So when somebody's saying turn 7, I had to constantly think, are they talking with the chicane or without the chicane? And I kept assuming that they were talking without the chicane. So I was listening to what they said, and then all of a sudden I'm realizing that they're saying it's a right-hand turn and it's a left-hand turn in my head. So I'm all confused. But by the time I got done with my first weekend, I had the track fairly well down with the numbers that the people were talking about. And there's a couple turns that I just didn't have straight. There's one called Madness. That's the one where it's kind of like a horseshoe to the left, and at mid-track, maybe slightly over mid-track, it goes from positive camber to negative camber. So you've got multiple lines and multiple entryways to get in there. And then the one going onto the short straight onto the front straight is a 90-degree-ish turn, but it's a decreasing radius. But you're at a decreasing radius when you're trying to get as much speed as you can to get down those long straightaways. So it was a challenge there, not either drifting out too wide or being able to stay on line so you could get the gas as early as possible. And then whenever I got it right, I refer to it as the Ben Dawson approach to the turn, and I could get onto the gas as early as possible. I'd be sitting there zipping through, and whenever I got it late, then I couldn't turn the gas on because I just swung out too wide and I wasn't set up for the next turn. So those are the two that really tormented me the first time. The second time, this time, I think I figured it out. And the nice thing about this track is there's multiple approaches to each turn, depending on your car and depending on how you want to do it. So that does make it entertaining.
So you're saying that that place has a few places where the track is crowned like a road would be, where it's a drain this way, drain that way.
Yeah. And I will say that, the reputation that everybody says is Mid-Ohio in the rain is a slippery.
Sounds amazing.
It's it is. I only went out there once when it was semi-wet. It wasn't even raining, and there's no traction. It's ice.
I always hear that place likes, if you're racing a car that's on Toyos, like Spec E46 with NASA, a lot of places, a lot of series, you have to race Toyos. But my understanding is that Mid-Ohio, maybe more tires than just Toyos, but it likes old Toyos more than brand new rubbers.
It looks like it could use a little loving in the paving section of the world. So
I wonder how often. Do you know how often the place has been paved?
Doesn't look like it's been a while.
I bet that's a sore subject among some people. Like, people don't want it to get paved, and some people probably would.
Yeah. The keyhole, especially that 180-degree turnaround.
Yeah. I'm looking at a track map. That's a serious turn, especially coming out of the chicane. You can do a lot of turning if you get the chicane right.
Exactly, and but the inside quarter is kind of chewed up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like Pennsylvania road, but it's not like a racetrack either.
So is it Thunder Valley, where you come up out of Thunder Valley and then as you're getting up for turn 11 or whatever, the wall is like right there. The wall is like, hello, right there.
Yeah.
Is that the spot?
Yeah.
That looks so crazy in videos. People just, they come slinging up out of Thunder Valley. It's like, hello, wall. They shoot on down to the next thing, but you just come right next to the wall.
It's really not like, you've been to Watkins Glen, right?
Right.
It's not an intimidating wall like Watkins Glen. It's one you just go over and you nestle right next to and you say, hey, how you doing? It's fun.
That's crazy. But it's really close, right? Like, it's right there.
Yeah, like there was one guy, he was in a right-hand drive GTR.
I bet he was loving it.
He easily could have touched it with his hand if he was doing a point by or anything. Oh yeah.
That's crazy. Speaking of right-hand drive GTRs, shout out to Winsome Adjunct JD. Craig has one of those in Raleigh.
Nice.
I mean, also he was talking about like, hey, what kind of trailer can we get to get this out of my parking deck? So I mean, I'm not sure what it's doing at the moment, but it's a pretty cool car.
That is. Those are fun.
Yeah.
And they're legal now, so who knew?
JD knew.
I guess. Yeah. So, there was this one incident that the thing that stood out to me was I'm going up into Keyhole. Remember, that's the 180-degree turn. And I look in my mirror because you're supposed to. And I look in my mirror, and the car behind me, rapidly approaching, is the McLaren 720S. Right behind it is a Mustang Shelby 350R. And then right behind that is, I think it was a C6 race-prepped Corvette. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to hold him on that big back straightaway. So I get through the apex and I start to unwind a little bit. So I stick my hand out the window, and I swear my hand was like still going out my window, and the Mustang was gone. The McLaren was gone, and then the Mustang was like, whoa. So between the McLaren 720S sound and the 350R going by, those are by far the two best. And honestly, I would say style-wise, the McLaren just sounded like a F1 car zipping by me. And I went over after the session and gave the guy 2 stickers saying, that was the most fun I've ever been past, and the fastest and the best sounding.
That's cool. Sometimes I don't mind getting past if the car sounds really cool and they go, I'm like, okay, I'll take it. That's pretty rad. Especially if they sound cool when they're letting off, and I'm running right back up on the brake zone.
Oh no, I wasn't running back on him. Look at the length of that cool straightaway. It took me a while. I had all my little squirrels pedaling as fast as they could, and he was like, it's zipping off into the future. I was like, okay, this must be like the Back to the Future movie, because he was gone.
That's funny, because I know when I get a student, when I'm instructing a DE and I get a student who's got a pretty high horsepower car and they're doing okay, I'm the guy I'll be eagle eye watching for the point by. So if I see like a shred of a finger coming out, I'm like, take it. So that's what happens if I'm in the car. As soon as that point happens, we are gone if it's a high power car.
Yeah, I mean, it was easily the fastest accelerating car I've ever seen. Those 720s are amazing, and that was an S2. So it was like, okay, have a nice day, sir.
See you later.
Yeah. So it was pretty impressive. So
how did you feel about the carousel? Is that a turn you felt like you had down as soon as you got there? Is that one?
No, that was the decreasing radius one at the end.
Yeah, I saw. I was like, look at this decreasing radius. I bet you have a lot to learn in there.
You do, because it's like you don't want to swing out. Like traditionally, you swing out wide left, and then you come through and late apex, and you can't do it there. So you only swing out, like it turns out that you swing out about halfway out, maybe. You still do a late apex, but if you get your entry speed wrong, you just keep sliding on out, and then you're screwed for the next one, which you really want to be on. So it's a patience turn, I think.
Jen and Vicky, y'all know what we're talking about?
No.
A decreasing radius. Does that make sense to you guys?
No.
Okay, so the turn keeps getting tighter and tighter as you go.
Yeah, it tightens up. So it starts out with a pretty open entry, it gets tighter and tighter. So it turns out with a turn like that the apex is all the way around the backside. So DIR has a turn like that in the South Course. It's called Bitch. But this last turn at Mid Ohio is the same one here where you say number 12, the carousel.
See how it gets tighter and tighter as you go?
Yeah.
And you want to hit right here. And then, because you want to be getting on it, because you've got this big straightaway, and then this big straightaway, and then this big straightaway, and it all starts back at this turn. So you really want to get it right, or else, especially if you don't have the horsepower of, say, a 350R or something else with gobs and gobs of it, and you're a momentum car, you need to get it right, because you're going to pay for it the whole way if you don't.
So we know that our listeners now have the Mid Ohio track map pulled up. And if they don't, then I'm definitely going to talk for a couple seconds just to sort of fill a little bit of time while these nerds whip out their telephones.
If you're driving, do not whip out your telephone.
Don't get your phone out if you're driving. But if you look at this carousel section where it's 11, 12, and 13, which of those apexes do you think is most important to hit? 11, 12, or 13? You want to hit one exactly right. Which one would you pick?
I don't know.
If you got to nail one of those, I want to nail the one that's leading onto the straightaway because that's where I'm going to have the best chance at building the most speed. So I'm not as worried about turn 11 because I'm pretty much just, the apex there, I'm just kind of slinging my way down through a pretty straight one. Number 12 is not that bad because I want to optimize being in exactly the right spot for number 13 because if I hit that exactly right with the most speed possible, I might be able to pass the guy into turn 1. But whatever I do at turn 12, it's not going to be able to pass somebody into turn 13 if I get turn 12 exactly right. But I may be able to give a little bit up in turn 12 to make sure I'm exactly where I want to be coming out of 13 and can maximize my advantage down the straightaway. So when you hear people talk about prioritizing a corner, I would prioritize 13. I've never been there, but I think I would prioritize 13.
So the only difference I would say to you, Ben, is the line that they wanted us to do in 12 almost straightens out 13.
So if that's the case, if you can do an exit out of 12 that puts you straight across what would be the apex of 13, then 12 becomes really important. If the local track magic is the way that works is that the exit is straight through a carousel, straight through an apex. Yeah, that's really cool too.
Yeah, so that's why carousel was troubling because if you got it wrong, you paid for it through the front straight, straight to the keyhole and the straight out of the keyhole, and it's just like And just so you guys are aware, this is where the chicane is for the keyhole.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a fun track. I think it's a legendary track, and I'm not sure why. I guess.
Yeah, it's never seen though. I'm going to go drive there eventually, but I haven't ever been able to figure out why everybody loves it so much. So.
And to be fair, I have only done HPDEs there. That I never raced there. And HPDE, you're going to learn a track differently than when you're racing it. Like if we raced it, one of the things I was thinking about doing is next year when we do these NASA HPDEs, on Friday they have a short endurance race. Maybe we go out Friday, do the short endurance race, and then do the HPDEs Saturday and Sunday. That might make a better weekend. So
you people definitely need to do that.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So
when you talk about being a fun or an okay HPDE, but maybe a great competition track, in my experience, Carolina Motorsports Park is a lot like that. I've done like maybe one DE over there, but I've done a handful of lemons races. I mean, I would not drive the 3.5 hours over there for a driver's education event, but I will go race there anytime because it's a really fun competition track. But I could see that.
Yeah, and that's like I said, there are differences between the two. For an HPDE, especially if you're at the lower levels where you can only pass on straights, you kind of want these long straights because you got to get around some trains. But for passing, I like this turn right in here, turn 5, which is madness. This is the one that's off camber, downhill.
Yeah.
Off camber on the outside, on camber on the inside, and there's a reason why they call it madness because no matter what you do, you don't ever feel like you got it. And
that's great.
Yeah.
But I'm
what
just
about
worried. The kink up.
Is that flat for everybody or
turn 3? Well, maybe not for the McLaren. It was flat for me. So if you're going from turn 1, you're going uphill to keyhole.
Yep.
And then on the way back, you're going on the outside, the left side, you're going uphill, but on the inside, you're going downhill for a little bit. So you kind of keep it tight, and then through the kink, you wait for the delay until you're past halfway, and then you turn over because otherwise you're going to be going up the hill again. So you want to just go through there. And then in my car with 200 horsepower, it was flat out. And by the time I got down to my breaking point down at going into China Beach, turn 4 or turn 7, which drives me batty, but I would be max. I think I could probably get to high 1 teens. So, but it was fun. I had a good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 200 is a lot. I mean, I'm a Miata guy, so you talk about 200 horsepower like it's nothing. I'm like, hey, I would love to have a 200 horsepower.
Well, you're also lighter, so the Miata is the 86. I think equal drivers. I think the Miata is plus or minus the same, like an ND.
Yeah.
Plus or minus the same because the weight versus horsepower thing. But,
so how did the car drive? Did you have any issues with the car?
Well, what happened was I decided that I was going to change my tire pressure. So I raised my tire pressure a little bit just to see if it would make things better. And I think it made things worse.
So what was so you messed around your cold tire pressure?
Yeah, my cold, and with the HPDEs, you don't get off track fast enough to get a tire temperature.
Not unless you brought your crew and you were like a fancy man.
Exactly, and I didn't. So I didn't know what my hot. By the time I got over there, I probably could have done hot pressure, but you wanted to go to the download, so I never did that. So I just kind of said, all right, well, it's not terrible. It's a little looser than I'd like it to be, but I just want it to be the same for the rest of the weekend, so I just left it there.
You can also learn a lot from a car that's not doing exactly what you want.
Yeah. Well, I learned that the first session and the second session, the first section, there was probably a little bit of dew or maybe on the track. And the second session, it was much, much, much better. But just that little bit of moisture on the track, whoo, boy, that's a little slippery little track there. So
were you running times?
Yeah, we were running times. I got down to.
So was it better? It was better when it felt drier. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was fun though. And then towards the end of the weekend, I went and I tried to. I took my test, my written test, and my driver's test for HPDE 2.
Yeah.
And as my picture demonstrated, I was able to take my 2 off my car, and now we are in HPDE 3. So getting there.
So you have to run around with a big 2 or a 1, 2, or 3 in NASA Great Lakes. It just tells them like, hey, this person's a DE 1, 2, or 3.
Well, they have it on your front windshield. It's different than the one. My car, just for this weekend, they happened to reassign me my car number, so I went from something else, and they said, well, 2's available. So my car was actually car number 2. So,
gotcha.
But once I had to take it off anyway. But since I went from 2 to 3, I figured I'd take a picture and throw it on Instagram. Thought it was funny.
Were you running solo already in DE2?
Yeah.
I guess are they doing in-car instructing right now?
They're doing some. They're doing some now. Like my checkout ride was in car. Yeah, full mask, full helmet. So my checkout ride was in car. It was actually during a passing drill. So the passing drill was first lap, the train of 4 cars stays left on the track, and the rear car passes everybody but the instructor in front. And you just keep doing that. And then on the second lap, you're on the right-hand side of the track, and you're doing the pass. So that was fun. And then during that, I had to point out and identify all the flag stations on the first lap. So I'm doing a passing drill with cars going backward, forward, upside down, and pointing out flag stations. And one of the people in my train wasn't doing a very good job. They would pass and then stay right on the tail of the instructor. So there was no.
So they would leave any room to get ahead of them?
No, not so much. So that was kind of annoying. And then after we did those 2 laps, then he wanted me to do a free drive, and we got through. I think we did 4 or 5 more laps after that, so it was 7 laps on that session. And a couple laps, he'd asked me why I was doing what I was doing, and I said, "Well, this isn't a home track for me." And he asked what I was working on and what I thought I needed to do. And then the last 2 laps, he started giving me approaches to different turns, because what I thought I should do. He drives a Miata. So similar car, and he showed me some local knowledge because he lives like 45 minutes away from the track. So he showed me like 2 different lines through different turns that were vastly different than what I was doing. And then when I did it, I was like, oh, okay, that works much better. So
were they faster? Did they make it faster?
Oh yeah, way faster. And
nice.
You were just able to carry much more speed going into other turns. And the thing with learning, and just for everybody at home, when you learn and you get faster in turn 5, that's a great thing until you get to turn 6 at a totally different speed than you've ever been there before. And you have to be careful about that, because you can get yourself into trouble by getting better.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, but it's definitely something that when I'm doing in-car instructing, I hopefully I try to stay on top of it. If I realize like, hey, we just run around this, I can tell we run a lot faster. We're in a higher gear, or we're just carrying more RPM. Hopefully I'm there to tell the student, like, all right, now that we did that, we need to break a little earlier. Or, you just have to make adjustments to your rhythm and timing. But as you get faster one place, it's going to cause a consequence at your next destination.
Right. And, that's one thing we'll probably talk about later. We probably should. So that was it for NASA Great Lakes at Mid-Ohio for me, I've got 2 more set where I've got to go to Great Lakes. One I'm going to be at Audubon for the first time, and one I'm going to be at NCM, National Corvette Museum, and see how that is. And then hopefully, if Jennifer's ribs do well, we've got a skid pad / autocross event.
Yes.
That's been looming at Lime Rock for a while, right?
I know this is a different one now. We got
really?
another place there. We're going to rent out the skid pad and the autocross, and we're going to have some instructors there, and we're going to learn.
That's great.
And then we might do Summit Point. We'll see.
We're excited.
Very
That's
excited.
We
The skid
have
pad is
to,
going to be invaluable.
yeah. Well, the skid pad is during the week.
It's a
So,
Tuesday.
yeah. So we actually have kids that we need to manage at the same time. And with the school being virtual right now, we have to figure out how that's going to work out with travel. I can't have anybody watch her with the existing COVID situation starting to flare up. So
Tell me about it. It's been our deal for months and months down here.
Yeah. So that's my HPDE. Anything else you guys want to know?
Bill, of course, graduated.
Right.
I would like to know what you learned. What was your big takeaway from going from HPDE?
Yeah, what was the
to TE3?
epiphany? Yeah. Do you have any epiphany or did you have one session that stood out like, wow, that was just a changing point in everything?
Great question.
Well, it's going to be a longer answer than you probably think, but so I got used to the track because the first time I was there, I wasn't really used to the track until almost at the end. So I got used to the track fairly early. So what I was able to do was, instead of worrying about track related things, I was focusing on passing the HPDE 3. So what I wanted to do was work on my line. And as I was working on my line, I was able to carry more speed. But as I was able to carry more speed, I was able to get more and more comfortable with more degrees of slip in the car. So I was actually probably carrying the most slip angle in my car that I've carried before at any track. So it was interesting to see how that would then compound turn by turn by turn and make the subsequent turns even faster with more slip because I was coming in faster. So that was kind of the win for me.
Oh,
I like that.
yeah. The tires were singing.
They were doing opera this weekend, so I was quite happy. I posted some pretty decent times, and I actually got the Apex Pro. It grades or it gathers lots of different data, and then it converts. There's one that it converts into an Apex number. I don't know. It's 0 to 100, and 100 being you're using 100% of the available grip, 100% of the available time, all the way around the track. So I don't think you can get there, but I had a couple laps where I got into the 80s for the first time. So, that was new for me. So
Nice.
I don't know if 80s are good or bad. I'm not fully fluent in Apex Pro, but it was interesting. So good times. We've got a couple new guests coming on from this event. So we met a few people. We have we met a gentleman named Bob who was driving around in a silver NB Miata. So I had to go walk over to him. He was an HPDE 1. I had to walk over to him and say, you know what NB stands for? And once I found out his name was Bob, I had to explain to him that NB stands for not Bill, but his stands for not Bob's soon. So he got a kick out of it. So he may be listening. He had a couple questions with the Miata because he's got a sightline issue because he was a taller gentleman in an NB Miata, and it was fully stock. He's like, the seat belt doesn't hold me in, the seats don't hold me in. So we started talking about different seats and different harnesses and ways to lower the seat. So he's probably going to send us an email and get some help from the blind people on our side of the world. But it was kind of fun. And you're on mute, buddy.
Sorry. So you met a very tall Miata driver who was driving on stock seats.
Yeah.
He was doing TEs on stock. Like, I never attempted anything in my Miata on stock seats. Not even like I put racing seats before I tried to do anything. A bar. That's crazy. Yeah. He just needs to do a drop floor. If he's really tall, he just needs to do the drop floor.
Yeah,
Really
he didn't know that was possible, so it was fun. So he was one of the people that he can either scrunch a little bit and look through the window, or stand up real straight and look above the window.
If he's a tall person and he's got a roll bar in there, he's probably not legitimately passing the roll bar test. I'm always saying this because I hope this gentleman gets the safety equipment he needs to enjoy track life forever, ever if he wants to. But I definitely have seen Miatas. I guess this guy's with stock seats, but you're watching them go by, and I'm sure they went through tech and passed, scratched down and passed the broomstick test or whatever.
Yeah.
But then once you see them on track, they got a couple of inches of helmet proud above the roll bar. Like, oh, is that how much spine you don't need?
Yeah, pretty much. So he seems like a great guy. He's relatively new to it. He was loving life, and he was just having a good old time. So hopefully he's listening.
Get a race seat and harnesses and a roll bar, and we'd love you.
Yeah, he was saying how the seat and the harness, the safe seatbelt, wasn't exactly keeping him firm through turns. I said it only gets worse. So
yeah.
I was like, yeah. I told him about the Schroth. They have the DOT. If he stays with the seats, at least they've got the 4-point DOT approved harness, so you can actually stay in there. So yeah.
I don't know. In my mind, I went straight to like a race seat with 5-6 point belts immediately. Like, so I don't know. Not that I'm perfect, but that's what I would do. If I was anybody with a Miata or pretty much any track car, I would go straight to the safety equipment you need.
Yep, inch by inch. Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
excellent.
true.
Well, we have an audience question.
We do.
Cool.
And one was the track as great as everyone at NASA Great Lakes says it is?
Wow.
So.
Oh, this is from, did I say it was from Chrissy M?
No, you did not.
Okay.
We have a listener
This
named
is from
Chrissy M. Whoever he or she may be.
Who could this be?
Hi, Chrissy. Hi, Chrissy's mom, just in case.
Chrissy, I thought your episode was awesome, Chrissy.
That's true. It was.
That
fantastic.
was a really good episode that they did, the last one.
That's
Oh
right.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, all their episodes are great, but
All their episodes are great.
Valuable lessons there.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, the episode she's speaking of is Burnout on the
Yeah.
Everyone Racers. It's awesome. Okay, back to Chrissy M's question.
So like I said, it's not really simple to answer because I've only done it in HPDEs. I had a hard time learning what they call madness through the carousel, which is the technical side. The other side of the track's relatively easy to learn, so that wasn't too bad. Second time I went, it was much better. I think the track kind of grew on me. I think the one thing that I like, well, there's several things I liked. It's got sneaky elevation changes. It's got multiple lines and approaches to turns. The decreasing radius on carousel is very important, but also very frustrating. I think turn 1 is the best turn on the track. Personally, it's just a blast to go through. I think Madness is probably second best. And, there are multiple camber turns abound. I think in terms of things that aren't the best, it probably needs a little bit of repavement. I think the club layout's much better than the pro. Classroom area, it could have been better. I mean, I think Pittsburgh is by far the best that we've ever been to. It's also brand new, so there's no surprise there. I think it's a high horsepower track, and you can't overcome it, even though there's a good section of technical. The spots from Carousel, which is the beginning of the end of the course, all the way to China Beach, is basically just hit it as fast as you can. I'd be curious how it is in passing areas when you're racing, because with all the crowns and the track, I think it might chop the width of the track down a little bit, which could make it hard to pass in a race, but I think it would be fun. I'd say it's an above average track. It's not in my top 5 right now. It's definitely worth the drive out there. I think you should go. And I think it's one of those tracks that you can learn for a while. It's not one that's going to be very apparent. And, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably at like a 6 or a 7 right now on this one. I did a quick list underneath where I put down the 13 tracks I've been to. And right now it's number 8. So if you guys care, nobody cares.
What's your 1, 2, and 3? I know one's Pit, right?
One's Pit, and then
Right.
I actually like the Charlotte Roval and Gingerman would be my next 2. They're
Really? It was so much fun.
Jennifer loves Gingerman.
And I love Charlotte. It was so much fun. I had so much fun.
What did you love so much about Charlotte?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't. It was magnificent. Like, just to walk in there, it was surreal.
So you got Mecca pretty much.
You know what?
Yeah, pretty much.
Naked?
You got hit.
Not
No, Mecca.
naked.
You got
I
Mecca.
heard naked. Jennifer did too. You're talking
hit.
Delaware talk now.
Oh, whoa! No,
Naked.
I mean, you got hit with the Mecca aspect of the entire thing. Like, it's a big Mecca of speed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that
I-
too.
You probably
you know what?
you might have gotten naked. I don't know, but
The race bar was nearby. I'm sure somebody did.
Yeah. So
Oh, God.
the banks,
And the
banks were
banks.
awesome.
Thanks. I remember coming off Friday night, and I'm just looking at Vicky, and I'm just like, she was getting in the car, I was getting out. I'm like, you are gonna have so much fun.
She did. She was all giggly. I
And
have
she-
never
and-
seen Jennifer that skippy at a racetrack.
It
That's
was
awesome.
weird.
She really liked Gingerman this summer too. So
Gingerman
Yeah,
was a great track. That was a good track too. It
I
was a
struggled
lot
on
of fun.
Gingerman, but
what did you struggle with?
my orientation on the track.
There
Just
was
knowing where you were or where it was
Yeah.
headed?
it was
Yeah.
all lead follow. She doesn't do
Oh,
any
right,
track
right.
prep, so she doesn't know if it's a left turn or a right turn coming up.
Yeah, and every
Hey,
time
I'm with you.
I thought that I was in one spot, I really wasn't, and that was only because of my unfamiliarity, obviously. But if I go back, I think it was like the last day I understood exactly where I was, and then I was just flying. And of course, when they just did it in reverse, that was a whole different party. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was really good.
Oh,
We've got a local track that does that.
speaking
Yeah.
of which, I did the HPDE 2 with your partner in crime from Gingerman. He was there with us. Vicky,
Sorry.
your partner. You were in a 2-student group at
Yes.
Gingerman. Yes, he
Yes.
was with me on the HPDE 2.
Was
lot.
he?
Yeah, he's going to come on. We're going to
Yeah.
try to get him on.
Yeah, at Gingerman, I had a good time with. I forget what his name was.
Nice job.
Yeah, I do. I met him
She's
once.
a face person, not a name person.
I've always said it. I'm a face person, not a name person.
Okay, well,
So-
he has a face and
Yes,
a
he
name.
does. Yes, he does. Now he was incredible to race with, only because that he was more advanced, and I wasn't afraid to drive my car, and we just did a whole lot of passing in Gingerman. We had a ball on it. I was like, well, how was your point buys? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't do any point buys. I was just
I was
going by. Hey, Jen.
I was the point E, not the point R.
Yeah, I did that.
That's awesome.
So, what do you guys think? Think it's time for Fast and Furious storytime questions?
I can't wait to hear some of Ben's answers. So
What do you think, Jen? I think we should do the questions. I love this part.
All right.
We get to know all of our friends so much better. Jennifer, why don't you kick it off?
Okay. So Ben, what was your? I think he might even said this earlier, but just remind us, what was your first car? What was the worst car you've ever had? And what car from your family stands out in your mind? Like family car, like when you were a kid.
First car was that 1969 Chevrolet pickup truck with the 4 on the floor that we used as a 3-speed. I think it was a lot of fun. I did do a lot of sliding around on Alabama muddy dirt roads. I keep telling you people that's how I know what car control is. But yeah, we really just try not to die, doing stuff we trying to keep our parents from knowing about in Alabama. That's what taught me how to drive fast. But yeah, that was the first car. What are the other cars I want to tell you about? The worst car?
Worst car?
Worst car. There isn't a worst car.
I'm trying to think. I keep saying I don't like cars, but I like them enough where even a car that's not great, I still like enough stuff about it. I guess I had even the Taurus, the boring Taurus I had was like a 91 or something like that. That was not a manual. It was a V6. I guess I haven't really had that many bad cars. I've
Awesome.
messed up a couple of cars, but I haven't. The cars have never done anything bad to me. I've only done bad things to cars,
We'd expect no less.
and they're usually fine. All right, and what's the other ones? What was the third one?
A family car that might stand out.
I got
Like
one.
you're right.
So Yes, we had a '67 Cougar that lived at my grandparents' house when I was growing up. It was parked to the right-hand side of the driveway, sort of out of circulation, right by the hedge. And it was so cool. It was a 289 with a 3-speed, three on the floor. And I think it had been my aunt's car. And I was like, hey, we're keeping that around for me, like, right? Like, that's gonna be a car I can get to as an adult. Because I mean, what you're gonna drive when you get old enough has a big life in our family. Like, every time I bring Nora, my kid, in right past the E46 bill, she goes, Daddy, that's the race car you're building for me so I can drive it when I'm old enough. I'm like, yes, because I've been telling her that since she was 1 day old, because I've also been trying to build this thing for that long. But yeah, I've been telling her that since she was born. But yeah, so like at least as a kid, I was like, I'm getting that '67 Cougar, right? And they were like, no, you're not. So by the time I was ready to drive, that thing was long gone. And so you can also count that maybe as one that got away if we talk about that later. But that Cougar was a family car that I was like, that is my birthright, which nobody told me. I just told myself that, and I didn't get it.
Nobody listens, man.
Yeah, nobody listens to Ben. What the hell? But yeah, that was a cool car. I really thought it would be a lot of fun to get as a teenager. And then I got a Taurus with a 4-cylinder and a 5-speed and no clutch.
My husband Jim has a '67 GTO, and over the years, because we will be married 25 years in February, but over the years
awesome.
it's been brought up. Should we sell it? Or we really don't do anything with it. And I'm like, nope. I'm the one that won't let him get rid of it. But
should you give it to Jimmy? Nope.
Nope.
Jacob? Nope.
Are we talking about are these the names of your beloved sons? Is that who this
Yes.
are?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you're just like, nope, skip those guys.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
Jennifer, Jim, Jacob, and Jimmy.
Yeah, no
That was a
problems.
joke.
No problems with Jay's there.
Yeah.
Hey, I got them all. I just was gonna bring it up because I didn't know if it was like a big deal or not.
Well, there's a story behind that because Jim wanted a junior, so then we had Jimmy Jr. But then you just can't name the fourth kid Bob because
Right. You don't leave him out. Yeah.
At
At that point, it's exclusionary. You can't do it.
You could do like George Foreman. He named all his kids George.
Yeah. Girl George.
That's whatever. Boy George.
Boy George.
There we go.
So, Ben, what is one thing that no one knows about you that would surprise them?
I studied classics, so Latin and Greek in college, and then didn't do anything with that. I didn't go to law school or med school or anything useful with it, but that's what I did. I think not many people know that.
That's awesome.
my oldest son studied Latin, and my youngest son is going into high school, and he's going to do Latin. I
Way
think
to go.
Be very
Jimmy
useful.
Jr. and other ones.
Yeah.
The names with a J. Jacob.
Yeah.
Jimmy and Jacob studied that Latin. I could craft a really well-worded email. I think it did great for my reasoning skills. It was what I was good at, and it was what the state paid me to go to school to take, so I did it. But it's not what I do. Like, I work in manufacturing, don't use a whole lot of that every day.
E pluribus unum.
Uh-huh.
All right. So, automatic or stick?
Stick.
Everybody we've asked just about.
Almost.
I hear a lot of your more sensible guests go like, "Hey, I've done plenty with the stick. I've earned my stick merit badge, and a lot of stuff just makes a whole lot more sense with an automatic, and I'll take it." So I've heard people say that. I've processed what they're saying. I've decreed to myself that they're terrible people who are going to hell, and I'm only going to drive stick as much as I can my whole life.
You're going to drive a stick to hell.
I will drive my stick right into the handbasket straight to hell. But yeah, like, I went out of my way to go find an X5 that's got the 6-cylinder. Like, there's way cooler engines in an X5, but I wanted to get one of the rare ones that came with the 6-speed. I think I even way overpaid. But it's a cool old truck.
So with my sports history, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when I get my knees replaced. The primary reason I will get my left knee replaced is so I can drive a stick.
Totally.
It's not. I don't care if I go up and down stairs.
I don't care about that.
I
Bring
need to
all
be
the
able to
stuff you
drive.
need downstairs. You don't need that. So do you have? So right now you just gut it out, like you just kind of like a little bit of pain, or is it a lot of pain for you to drive a DE or a race?
It's all good, man. I'm racing the car.
I mean, Dale Earnhardt used to take like.
I ain't got time to bleed.
He used to take a fistful of muscle relaxers before every race. Like Earnhardt, he would take a fistful of muscle relaxers. He would eat a tomato like an apple, and he'd be like, "All right, we're ready to roll." But then, at one point, there was a race where he did his usual routine. And then he just went out and rode on the outside wall. He was asleep, and he just had his foot kind of partially on the accelerator. And they're like, "Hey, bring Earnhardt in. I don't think something's wrong with him." They're like, "I don't know, man. I just did my normal thing. This many muscle relaxers, whole tomato, and I'm asleep on the track. Like, what the hell?" But yeah. So I mean, yeah, everybody's got their own thing.
That's awesome.
What is your? Do you have a favorite race car driver besides your dad?
My favorite. I guess historically is Mark Donohue. I just admire so much about that guy, as far as what he did with grassroots beginnings, like to the point of where him and his buddy had to go to a local SCCA meeting, and they tore his Corvette engine down on the table in the SCCA meeting to show that he wasn't cheating. And he was like, "We're not cheating. We're just not running a head gasket. That's it." And then he left the meeting. That guy went on to dominate. He went on to run like NASCAR, Formula One, and run all this kind of crazy stuff. USAC and IMSA. So that guy's one of my heroes. He's long gone. He died before I was born, but I just have always admired what he did from an engineering standpoint and being able to work outside the box. If this is working for everybody else, he was like, "I'm going to go try something else that might work even better." And a lot of times he did. So he was a guy who was a very good driver, which is inspiring. But he was also a guy who was willing to innovate, which is something I admire, but it's not really in my wheelhouse. I'm a Latin major, but I like to look at guys like that as an inspiration. So but as far as modern day and who's out in the valley right now, it's got to be Juan Pablo. That guy is he's everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, or 4-wheel drive, or does it really matter?
Don't care. Whatever we're racing, I'll race it.
That's yep.
What about that one car that got away?
Yeah, I just probably just a family car. As far as getting fixated on cars in my adult life, I haven't really done that. I'm not somebody who, I hear you guys have guests who are really, really cool, and I like to hear about it. But I'm not somebody who's out there prospecting for this car or that car. Like I want to have a race car or be able to race a car, which we do with our endurance car and the one I'm building, and driving other people's cars. But as far as street cars, I'm not that into it. It's just whatever gets me up and down the road is fine.
So your favorite car is the next car you drive?
Pretty much the next, whatever. My favorite car is the race car. Whatever race car I'm closest to is my favorite car. And it's if I'm thinking about ones that got away, I would be thinking about more about chances to go race a car that I didn't take. Then they went on to do really well. I'm like, damn, I should have jumped on with those guys. So I would probably think more about racing opportunities than cars that got away. But also, it's not like I have a pile of racing opportunities where I could have been a hero. Just missed out on a couple good times.
What's the fastest you've ever driven a car? What car, where, and when?
I was gonna say fastest I've ever been in a car because I've listened to these so many times. But I'm
You're
pretty
asking
sure
Ben, so it doesn't necessarily need to be a car. No,
No, I think I've been in the car with other people driving faster than I myself have driven, but I think probably like mid 130s. As far as like on the data, this is how fast you were going. I drove a friend's Spec E46, maybe 132, something like that is what the data on his video showed. But I think our E30's gets up to mid 120s. Maybe tops out at 130 at the hour with the long straightaways. But we use race capture. So I guess that's GPS data. So I guess it's pretty accurate.
Is.
But yeah, that's on the reg. I don't have any extreme speed to speak about.
See, the thing that always bothers me is when people ask you how fast you go, and they're saying, "Well, that's not really very fast." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's really very fast when you're going around a right-hand turn." So
I mean, it's a whole different deal. Like if you show somebody a video of you going 120 up the S's at the hour, like, okay, that seems really fast. But you just tell them like, "Oh, I've been that fast on the highway." Also, if somebody starts talking to me like, "Hey, how fast are you going?" I'm usually just not even going to answer. I'm going to walk away. But you're right. Like if you tell somebody I'm going 200 miles an hour every lap, it's a whole lot more impressive sounding. Like our car hits 124 different places a lap. Like to me, if you say that about it in the auto, you're like, "Hey, that somebody's really getting after it." They're pretty cool. Yeah. It doesn't sound impressive to anybody but us.
One of the things we have the most fun with, that we have the most or the least impressive video from, is our truck going around the high bank turn at Charlotte. It looks awesome, and then you realize it's like NASCAR at like half X.
Yeah. Yeah.
NASCAR takes this turn at 160. I'm going 90, baby. That's
Living large, living the life.
That's so funny. I had a chance to drive a car at Las Vegas Motor Speedway at a night race, and so I'd never driven there. I just did all the practice I could on iRacing and watched any video. But I knew that I was in this Volvo wagon. I was like, I am 100% sure no matter how fast I get going, I do not need to let up going into NASCAR because I know these guys go in there going 80 miles an hour faster than anything I can do in this car. So that's a good reassuring thing. Like, doesn't matter. I definitely don't have to let up. Just toss it down in there.
I need a 10 speed. This 5 speed's not getting it.
That's right.
So I know you don't really care about what you drive, but I mean, if off the top of your head, if you could think of 5 cars that you would choose if you were just on a desert island
With a racetrack.
with a racetrack.
Whoa. Yeah. Gosh, that's a tough one. I would definitely want to have whatever this year's top flight spec Miata and all the spares. I would want to have that, but I would also want to have like a multiple fleet of like 10 or so my buddies could come to the island. We could all have a good race. So that would be one.
I won big money because I was saying Ben's going to say I want 5 spec Miatas.
Yeah, so I need 10 spec Miatas. I need extra credit to get more cars from you people up here. Like, no, I think a Miata is a lot of fun and a universally fun car that everybody can enjoy. But it's so funny. I'm trying to think. I know. I think a Spec E46 would be a lot of fun since I'm building one of those and kind of getting ready to loan on one of those for decades, and hopefully my kids will get to drive one. I think you have to have a McLaren F1, like the ones the racing McLaren F1s.
Right.
One of those would be just a blast. I think a '60s Trans Am car would be a lot of fun, since we were talking about Mark Donahue.
Okay.
Am I 3?
That's 4.
Oh yeah, 4. So a 5th car would just have to get my family around the island, and that would have to be a golf cart with a V8.
Wow.
There
Okay.
you go. That's a first.
I still
First.
like my Dune buggy. My Dune buggy's awesome.
Yeah, Dune buggy would be cool too. For me, as long as if I were on a desert island, as long as I had a few fun things to play around with and enough stuff for everybody on the island to play, then we'd be having fun, and that's why I'm at the races.
Yeah, I figured you were going to have a boat come in and bring in some Alabama dirt and mud to get on that island the right way.
I'll tell you, if I was not racing the stuff I'm racing, I would very likely be trying to do some kind of oval track car racing on dirt. That would be the next most likely thing I'd be doing, because I'd be racing something, and I would love doing that. You only do so much stuff.
Absolutely. And we don't even do any of it well.
So Ben, what dream car would you like to? I mean, for a race, would you think a great build would be from? What would your build be?
You get the car, you get the parts.
Jake.
Yeah.
He's not a car guy. He's a racer. He's not a car guy.
Yeah. No.
You know what? Just give him a freaking seat. He's good.
Exactly.
I don't care what the car is. Just give me a seat.
Exactly.
I got kids. I'm desperate.
You're there. You're 10 miles ahead of me. I was just like, man, just give me like a Porsche Cup ride or something like that. That'd be fun. I don't care.
It's got a beer tap in the back. Call it good.
I want to be racing something that's in a competitive field. So I mean, I've enjoyed, and I'm not going to stop doing the amateur endurance racing stuff that I've done. But I've always admired and was kind of building towards Spec Miata, at least until I realized how much it costs to be competitive nationally with one. I was building toward that during all the time I was doing DEs and instructing before we started racing the Miata I had. But I want to do some kind of racing that's got a tight competitive field with a bunch of cars. So I mean, you talk to real racers, they don't care whether they're racing a Miata, a Hyundai, or whatever it is. Give me the packed field with the best talent. I want to race against that. At least for me, as far as the way I consider my own place in motorsports, I think I have more aptitude for driving than I do for building or being smart about math or physics. So I am always going to be gearing my own competition goals toward driving something where my driving can speak for itself more so than whether or not bend those fractions or can do tire pressure.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So
that make sense?
The next question is, and not that you really care about that, but if you could only drive.
This is aimed at car people, and Ben is like, I don't care. I'll drive it. I'll drive it.
If you know what your answer is going to be. If you can only drive and race cars from one decade in the past, what decade would you choose? So I guess what cars appeal to you? What decade of cars appeals to you?
You know, I got it. Just because. So let's bring in how much of a dumb I am. Let's bring that back into this calculation because I am dumb.
This
Super
podcast is
dumb.
going to go long now.
Yeah, so probably 80s, like something where I wouldn't be able to have to work on anything smart computer-wise, maybe carburetor. But yeah, I mean, like our E30 race cars from the 80s, and we do okay working on it. Maybe up into the 90s, into the E30, 46 era, if we're thinking about BMWs, which I always am these days. So yeah, so not current day because I'm not smart enough for that, but something old enough that an old Luddite like me could work on it and still make fast enough to get to the track. Like for me, that was a big goal with the Miata. It was something that was simple and analog enough that a dim bulb like me could do enough stuff to still make it fast in front of the track. So I'm looking for cars from the 80s and 90s, 80s probably. Let's say 80s.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is Bill's question. Bill.
Oh, thanks.
Nobody ever wants credit for this question. Huh?
No, but they hate this question, and I love this question. Jeremy, Hammond, May, Chris, Matt, other.
Oh, I don't think you've listed them all, but none. Those guys
None.
annoy the crap out of me.
All right, very well.
All right.
We've had that
Where would
answer.
your ultimate road trip be from and to, and in what car?
Oh, so far in my life, we've done a fun one where we took a road trip with all of our stuff and our dogs out to California and just drove out there and lived out there for a couple of years and drove back. So that was pretty rad. Just saw a bunch of stuff that, being from the South, I wasn't used to seeing as far as landscape and our amazing country. So that was cool driving through all those different stations. You kind of end up in a place that's different enough from North Carolina. You're like, holy crap, this feels like a different country here, even a little bit like a different planet in some places. So, and then, coming back across, it was a lot of fun. So far, I've done what I think is pretty ultimate. We did it in a U-Haul truck, which is pretty cool, and my wife's Lexus. So that's I would rather if I would do the same drop and I would swap it out for a Lotus 79 for me with a refueling helicopter so I wouldn't have to stop unless I felt like it. So I could scream across the country going like 180 most of the time. And then my wife, she could drive whatever she wants to. I mean, she's coming, but it's just not as fast as me.
No problem.
Okay.
Ben's going for the record.
Yep.
Yes.
Setting a record. I have set some land speed records, and I'm not done doing that.
Nice.
We didn't even talk about my land speed racing long story career, but there's also one of those.
Our next question involves land speed racing and record setting events. Ben, you're familiar with anything related to this area?
Yeah, I did some standing mile events with a car with a very small engine where nobody had bothered to set records in a displacement that small, and then I set some easy records. End of story.
That's awesome.
Okay.
So,
Oh.
go ahead, Jen.
Okay. So do you have a favorite car movie or car from a movie that you enjoy?
I gotta say Le Mans, that movie that Steve McQueen did, where he was actually racing Porsche 917s that year or something like that. But that's just the coolest. There's hardly any dialogue. It's just people just ripping around the track and stuff
Lots
like
of
that.
looking at each other.
Lots of long glances, knowing glances, scared glances. Race car. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's my favorite. And the car from that, the 917 is pretty awesome.
All right.
So what car would you love to switch into that you are currently racing against in the past, and in what track?
I'll tell you what, the people who always had their stuff together that impressed me the most, as far as like having their pit method down.
Besides us, Ben.
Well, yeah.
And race bar.
Sure. I'm not trying to do nepotism, so we're not going to talk about you guys. But when I was racing Lemons out west, there was a team called Cerveza, and they raced an E28 5 Series, and they're legend. I don't even know these guys personally, but legend has it that there were some good club racers who said, "Hey, let's go try Lemons," and they figured out how easy for them it was to win Lemons. So they just keep showing up and dominate. But they're also super good guys, and they put a keg of beer in the trunk of their car, and the BMW emblem is a tab or something like that. So they're really nice guys, and you never feel bad losing to them. But they got their car is really well set up, and they're all very patient in traffic. So I mean, if anything, I would just like to idolize the guys and the car, and it just totally embodied them. But you watch them come into pits, and there's never anything panic. They're just in and out really fast. They've got everything tuned up. And we were racing Lemons at Thunderhill, and that's where if I could take their car and go dominate somewhere, I would like to go run their car with those guys at one time at Thunderhill. It'd be a real honor and a blast. But we were there racing in like 2013, 2014, and they it was in between Saturday and Sunday with lemons, and I guess they just felt like the straightaway speeds had gotten out of hand or something like that. So they said, all right, guys, in between Saturday and Sunday, we're going to bring this rolling dyno out, and the top 5 at the end of Saturday have to get on the dyno, and every horsepower overstock that you have on the dyno, you get a lap down on Sunday. And so, like, everybody in the top 5 got, we're getting laps on Sunday and got knocked out of contention because they were running too much power, kind of cheating the system with lemons. But the Cerveza guys were in the lead, and I guess they were supposed to have 150 horsepower stock, but they were on the dyno and found out they only had 120, and they went out and dominated the next day. So these guys go out there with a big, heavy car and no horsepower and just wail on everybody. So those guys are kind of my idol, and I would love to go race with them sometime.
Cerveza is well known.
Yeah, everybody knows about Cerveza. So those guys are heroes, and I love what they're up to. I would love to drive that car sometime.
I think it's
So, do you have a car that you would just like to wipe away from history?
No, I guess Pinto. I think Pinto was one of the people thought was dangerous because you're going to roll up and tap the back. I know you guys, you made it out with Pintos, but
We did.
I guess from a Ralph Nader standpoint, maybe
You know
a Pinto.
what? Honestly, growing up, we're surprised we're even still alive.
Me too. Me too. So it's a miracle I'm here talking about anything.
Just remember
Really?
that next time Liam does something.
I know. No seatbelts, riding in the back of the truck with the cap off, and crap like that. All right. So, what is your favorite truck so far?
I gotta say, my home track of VIR is always gonna be my favorite.
Shocking.
Followed by a close second by Thunderhill out west. Thunderhill is a great track, a bunch of different configurations now, and I think Road Atlanta would kind of be third for me. I love Road Atlanta. God, if I could race there every single time.
Road Atlanta's fun.
Whew. But also, I think a VR, because it's so close to me, is always going to kind of get it. There's a whole lot more nuance at a place like VR. Road Atlanta is pretty straightforward.
Well, I can't help it. We're going to do our first ever live Dominating with Dawson in
Dominating
the
with
episode.
All right.
We don't even
All
get
right.
it. We don't even have a bumper for this. I don't know. Maybe I'll throw a bumper in. We'll see. I don't know. All right, Ben. Here it is. This is what I think we have as a weakness of our team. It's speed control / the sensation of speed is probably one of the weaker aspects of our driving. So the ability to know, hey, I'm going faster than I did last lap, or I'm going faster than I did earlier in the day or last session or whatever. Is there a thing that we could do to improve? Is there tips or tricks or a drill, or how do you get calibrated to noticing the speed at which your car is going? Or because I think it's important, because if you go into a turn at peak is 70 and you're doing 65, that's one thing. But if you go into a turn and peak is 70 and you're doing 85, that's a whole different problem.
Yeah, so that's something that's going to get keyed in on, so that you can tell on the fly how you're doing, whether there's a timer in the car or not. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. I think I got you. And in my experience, I am always kind of keying off of, like, I have a certain point coming out of the corner where I'm going to look at the tack and see how I'm doing. So if I come out of coming out of turn 4 at VIR or at an Oak Tree, those are kind of a couple of critically slow corners at my home track. And also they're slow enough where you usually have a second to look at and see how you're doing as far as RPM, or if your car's got a digital speedometer or something. But usually you're kind of looking at a point where, like, okay, this is where I typically check. So I usually set a point where I'm going to check my RPMs, and I hopefully I've known what a good lap is and noticed what my RPMs were at that point. But if I feel like I should be coming through turn X with Y numbers of RPMs, and you come through with less than that, like, I must have botched something kind of heading up toward the point where I typically check. But usually for me, I like to choose a point to check where either on the way out of a corner and got most of the exiting done. But you want to kind of have a reference point to check your RPM or whatever Right.
you use as a reference point. Make sure it's a place where you're relatively unbothered and you have a chance to look over there without it being dangerous to take your eyes off of everything else you're doing. But I like to I use RPM as a reference. And so, all right, at this point, this is kind of my established place to check it coming out of this place, this place, and this place. And I want to be coming out of turn 4 with 4100 RPM. If I'm under that, I'm kind of slacking. But if
Right.
I come out with 43, I know I did something right, and I got to go back and watch the video. Like, holy crap, I came out of there with 4300 RPM. So I was really cranking on to go see what I did, right before that. So So I usually have a reference point as far as just the micro of how am I doing on this turn. Is that part of what we're talking about?
It could be. I mean, so you basically use the tachometer, because a lot of the cars, the speedometer doesn't work.
Right. It's rarely speed, unless at least I have had students who have a digital speedometer that kind of helps.
So you use the tachometer.
I'm usually referencing the tach because hopefully I've done some timing at some point where I've been like able to kind of either get some data or at least know this is a good lap. And I go back and look at the video and like, oh yeah, look at that. I really had it wound out in third gear coming out of here, something like that. But usually I've been able to sort of assimilate like, all right, this is a good data point. This is a good number of RPM. But I mean, also I think you can just tell if it was a great lap. You can go back and look at how you were doing coming out of every corner.
Right.
But that's sort of the reference I like to establish. And if I come out lugging a couple 1,000 RPM off or a few hundred RPM off, I'm like, what's going on here? So that's a very basic reference point there. There's a lot of nuance of getting through the data of an entire lap, but that's sort of just like I like to check in coming out of here just to see how I'm going to do, because especially coming onto a straightaway or something like that. If you're like, I'm going to come on a straightaway 300 RPM short, you're not going to get as much speed as you could have. So it could be pretty dramatic consequences as far as getting run down in traffic if you're in race traffic or something like that. If you botch a corner coming out to a straightaway, you're going to get run over by traffic. You're going to lose some spots. So.
Right. Vicky or Jen, how do you guys keep track of your speed? How do you know if you're going faster or slower or?
Well, we don't have gauges.
Well, we don't. We don't. I was just going to say there's no gauges, but I guess.
There. Excuse me. The Bad Hombre has the biggest tachometer you're ever going to see on the left-hand side.
But we never got a chance to drive it this season.
And the BMW has 2, just in case you were curious.
But it doesn't really tell us how fast we're going, does it?
No, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
They both have speedometers too, but there's tachometers and speedometers, but don't let the gauges get in the way of your day.
Well, honestly, we just drive, I guess,
until you don't feel good.
Exactly. I think that's where we're at right now. I'm not looking at
when you hit that corner, you're like, oh shit, I better slow down.
Yeah. I'm not really looking at speed right now. Right now I'm looking for that comfort level.
Right.
And then just beyond it.
I hear you guys. I know what you mean. Like, hey, I've just got a kind of comfort level here. Just to explain sort of how I arrived at that conclusion. Like for me, when I got started in motorsports, I was doing the kart races. So I got a digital tach on my car that would show me temperature and RPM and stuff like that. And read off that little Briggs & Stratton motor. But for me, like it was just I had to learn how to live off of that stuff or just get eaten up. And I was like, I'm so competitive. I'm going to figure out like how to key in on exactly what my hot spots are as far as I want to be this kind of temperature coming out of the corner and I want to have this kind of RPM. So for me, I was just like, hey, I'm so competitive. I'm going to nail down and figure out kind of like what's a track. But it was just because
we're not there yet.
Yeah, I don't know if like it was immediate for me, but it was also just because I was so competitive. I was just like, I got to figure this stuff out. But that's just how I got there.
So I have an ulterior motive for this question. Okay, so the two of you are at a point where you're starting to go fast. You're not.
Here we go.
You're not super fast yet, but you're starting to go fast, right? Mm-hmm. And as you start to go fast, you're going to start to get to the limit of your skill, and then eventually you're going to get to the limit of the car. And what I'm trying to...
And then you hit a wall and then maybe break a rib or two, right?
Maybe, no. I mean...
Spicy!
I do got to say that I don't really understand what some of the stuff that goes on inside the car is. I mean...
Yeah.
Like what? Start talking.
Well, I know that the shifter button light is going and I know...
Okay.
And, not to make it go red... I know that. Sometimes with the tachometer stuff and little lights that are going back and forth, I don't know what that's doing. Whatever that little apex thing is that he has me, I don't know what that's doing. Haven't gotten onto it.
Ignore that for now.
Yeah.
Don't watch. I would say at your point, don't watch. If he's got a lap timer in there, don't watch the lap timer.
No, I actually I don't even want the lap timer in because it creates too much stress for me.
Right.
I actually start getting really, really stressful, and then I start getting really, really competitive.
Here we go. Here we go.
Right. And I don't think I'm there yet.
No, you're not.
No. And I'd
you're-
really rather have more skill than worry about lap times.
But you're starting to get there, which is
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
I think Bill is trying to intimate to you people that you've been doing enough DEs and racing that it's time to start tying some skill set together where gathering some data would be useful. And
well,
knowing
no,
how fast you're
it's
going, right?
it's not. I'm
He's
not
like,
going
no,
towards- it's
data's not useful for them yet.
not you.
I'm not going towards data yet. I'll take care of the
Okay.
data. That's not the problem. What I'm saying is, I remember at the last DE where Jennifer was with Chris, she was making significant gains, and she would be able to go significantly faster, like 4, 5, 10 miles an hour faster into another turn than she'd ever done before because she figured out how to do the turn prior. But I'm not sure that she knew she was going faster. And if you don't know you're going faster, you can get yourself into trouble because all of a sudden, what required just a slight lift may need more than a brush, may need some medium brake, as opposed to what got you through before isn't going to get you through now. And Vicky, you're starting to do the same thing. You're starting to go appreciably faster, which is going to require you to do different things than what you've done before because you've never done it that fast before.
Okay.
So how do you realize that you're having this happen? How do you cope with it?
Yeah, how do you know you're going faster? I guess because
my butt is telling me I'm going fast, and I'm getting uncomfortable, and usually
but
I
your
push
butt's
it.
only your butt's. I believe that your butt's only telling you you're going fast when you're going around a turn. I'm talking about the straightaway going into a turn.
Right. So
Oh.
So we're talking about how now that you're coming out of the corners faster, that you're building more speed down the straightaway because you're coming off the corners faster. So there is a compounding effect of like, hey, you and Jen are getting quicker and quicker with your driving routines, and it's time to start figuring out like, oh, hey, how do I know that I got off this corner a lot better and be aware of the fact that I might need to brake a little earlier into the next braking zone. So how do you quantify that and be aware of it? And one way, at least, I guess if you guys are not watching speedometers in the car or the tach, how do you know that you're doing that? Do you have a good feeling for like, ooh, I came off the corner really well and I've kind of shifted into the next gear sooner? Does that kind of something you notice?
I think right now for me, I'm just really trying to sequence our shifting. I don't know about Jennifer, but right now it's shifting alone. And, my thing is there's been times when I have realized again that I have missed the shift and I'm too high a gear. So I haven't really, quite mastered that part. The second nature of driving when things are just are almost muscle memory that
Right.
you know what to do right here.
Yeah, I don't think about it. Like for me, I've been doing this stuff so long. There's zero actual thought of me doing anything.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I'm still at the point where okay, this is where I need to shift. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I mean, it's more natural.
Well,
But now that I'm getting faster, it's like I know that I can go faster here. Like that with the HPD we did last time. I really wanted to focus on shifting because I knew I was getting faster and I knew that I could go faster on the straightaway. But it was just I wanted to know where I needed to shift to get into the turn. Do you remember, Bill? We talked about that. You know what I mean? To slow down enough. You know.
But when you guys watch video before you go to the track, you're watching club racing videos of people driving similar cars to yours. You have a pretty good idea of where you're going to shift, right?
If they watch the video.
Oh, I'm making an assumption that you're watching videos of similar cars to yours and knowing every inch of the track from the video before you arrive.
That would be nice.
Sometimes.
I'm only saying that because I am such a cheapskate and a competitive weirdo that like I'm just not going to go to a track without any kind of good idea where I'm going. Because also I'm just like, hey, I don't want to choke in front of a bunch of people and not know where I'm going. So these are just Ben problems. I'm just telling you that's kind of my process is to try to learn a bunch of stuff about the track and have a pretty good expectation of where I'm going to be putting the car, what gear I'll be in at least. Kind of hopefully where I'm jumping on the brakes. So that's a big part of my own preparation for going to a track because I don't know. if I've declared this fetish to you all or not, but I love and have had the chance to go to several racetracks that were brand new to me. And the first time I put a wheel on the track, it was already green flag, and I was racing. So the first time I ever drove this car at this track ever was in the middle of a green flag race. And that's a great feeling, but it wouldn't be that great of a feeling unless I watched a crap ton of video and practiced and sort of know exactly what to expect.
Even then you're watching the video. But again, it still comes down to muscle memory, because honestly, when you're in the car, Jennifer and I are right now in that space where there is so much going on inside the car that, you know, of sequence of events that are taking place, that you miss one and you miss two.
Right.
And I mean, before we even get to everything else on, yeah, I know I'm supposed to be downshifting here, but it's a matter of remembering to downshift there, you know, and not having somebody tell me.
If you were going for third gear and you get fifth gear, so you're coming out of the corner, you think I'm gonna slam into third gear, I'm gonna get going, and you hit fifth, and you're just dead in the water.
Right.
What do you do? What happens next? What do you do next? You ride it out, or you grab a different gear?
No, of course I shift the gear, but it's a matter of getting that proper sequence going into the turn, remembering that I have to blip and then drop down,
Right.
and then making sure that I hit that and then going out, and, you know, racing in, and then, you know, looking at all the stuff that's going on the dashboard at the same time with the revs.
And the flag stations. And
then
then
the flag stations, you know, and then making sure, you know, how am I going to enter this apex, you know, and then, you know.
And then everything you learned in class. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then also where we're at with it is that we only get 20 minutes each time we do this. So
Right.
we're not getting the track time to do the laps, to get the and honestly, this past race was the only place that we had track time to actually, you know, bring all of what we had learned this past year together, was just at this one race. And even then we were mostly working on the cars. So our track time
Right.
is really limited.
Okay. So you and
End of
Jennifer,
rant.
you and Jennifer are focused on slowing down for turns, getting your shifting right. I'm talking about coming out of the last turn in New Jersey and going into the first turn, or coming out of the last turn at Thompson and going into the first turn. You've got a big, long straightaway.
Yeah.
How do you know you're going faster through the straightaway, so you know you need to slow down more or slow down
by
less?
then you can look at the gauge.
I understand that. I'm trying to find out how you do it, though.
I don't understand. You just pump it and then see how fast you can go. I mean, when I was in Rhode Island and I would hit the straightaway, I think I maxed the truck out at 90, because if not, I would have to throw it into fifth, and I didn't want to do that.
Right.
You know, and so I don't understand the question. I mean, at some point when you're not sequencing, you can take that moment on those straightaways to actually look down at how fast you're going. Or when we had the tablets in the car, it kind of gave that a little bit, but
it does.
Or even the readouts on the track when we were in California, they actually saw how fast we were going. They were clocking the cars, but you know, when you're actually just driving, we're not really paying attention.
So I guess I really don't even know how fast I'm going. Like, I mean, honestly, I don't. It just is. And if it feels comfortable, that's great. And if it feels
other than that, I'm
it's
punching
even better.
Other than that, I'm just punching it and trying to get the most out of the car.
So sounds like you folks are kind of getting to a level where you're comfortable, and as long as it kind of gets in there, you feel good. But that's ultimately not going to be a way to get faster, to progress. But also, so that's just a thing for you to know. The question I have is, are both of you working really hard to try to rev match and blip the gas, trying to do downshifts on the way in? Is that something you're dedicating a bunch of headspace to? Because I don't think you need. I don't think you need to at this point. I think there's more basic driving stuff to concentrate on than that. Like, I don't think you have to be matching revs and heel toeing at this point.
Well, no, not heel toe, but we are working on blip. I'm working on blipping.
So you're you're off, you're on the brake and blip in the gas, and then you go over to the clutch and shift gears. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds weird.
She started off, and I'm not. You can tell me if I'm wrong, Vic, and a little bit, Jennifer. Your sequencing was off.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't blipping that started the problem. It was going down a straightaway, coming into a turn, downshift, then brake, as opposed to brake into a downshift. So
That was initially the very beginning.
right, and the progression has gotten better, but still, it's something that you're more concerned about. And what I was trying to get to was you're starting to go fast now. So one of the things that I did when we first started doing this, because when you first start doing this, you're very sensory overloaded, right?
Oh yeah.
Still.
So much.
Still sensory overloaded.
So you're sensory overloaded. So the odds on you looking at any gauge, there's a reason why all our cars have so many blinking lights, and even though you don't know what they mean yet, but it's because I know you're not looking at any gauges. That's just it might as well be painted with black. But what you could do, picture you're going down New Jersey or Thompson, right? You're going down the straightaway, and you've got the flag station, right? Both of them happen to be on the right-hand side. Judge where you go into fourth. Before the flag station, at the flag station, after the flag station.
I see where we're going. This is good.
Right? So if you're doing things right, you came out of that last turn, if you don't hit fourth until after the flag station, you are slow.
Yep.
The earlier you get the fourth, you are starting to go faster, which means you need to adjust your braking point or your braking pressure. Just know that you're coming into the next turn, which is a hard turn at the end of a long straightaway. You know you're coming in faster, so you need to slow down more, or more than you have before. Or maybe not at all, but at least know you're going in, hey, I'm going in much hotter than I was last time, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Ben?
Yeah.
So just like I was talking about as far as using RPMs as a reference point, Bill's drilled it down to an even easier way to do it. Like I could think of plenty of places where I'm like, all right, I'm shifting into this next gear exactly this point. Now I'm shifting a little earlier. I did something right. So he's got an even easier reference point for just thinking about. I usually shift here if I'm coming out of here, and I've done pretty good. So that's a great reference. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Just think about, I used to shift into the fourth at the flag stance. Just grabbing a reference for a good lap and where you shift gears is a really great idea. Does that make sense? It takes a lot of the other stuff out of the way. You're not looking at a gauge. You're just thinking, all right, flap, there's a shift. Was that early or was that late? Or where that's a good point, Bill. That's a really great point.
Yeah. One of my issues is that I'm braking and I'm forgetting to shift.
Well, so
and then I'm dead in the water coming out of the turn, and then I got to remember to shift, and then I've lost time.
Right. I think that's something else that I think where you and Jen sort of are fairly close in your development together. I think you two are at a point where I wouldn't even worry about shifting that much. I would be worried about doing the braking and getting turned in. And I would just even be thinking I wouldn't even be trying to downshift on the way in necessarily. If you can discipline yourself just to try this until you sort of develop into a little more skill with getting in and out of the corner. But you could definitely just brake, pop the clutch in and brake all the way down to the apex, brake her down to where you're going to let off and release. But just grab that gear right before you're ready to hit the gas to get out of the corner. Just grab your next gear, just like you've always done driving stick shift on the street. Coming out, you make a right turn at a stoplight. You were, coming out of the turn in second. You grab third on the way out or whatever. Just think about that in reverse, except if you're going down a gear. But still, just slap it into gear on the way out of the corner and hit the gas. That's one way to just not even worry about it, because ultimately you're not doing that much different than you would be if you were matching the revs, especially in a low power car. The main goal is to get braked and turned on the way into a corner. What you're doing with the gearbox doesn't really matter that much, especially at the level you guys are developing up from. I would just say you could definitely just brake all the way down to where you want to get back on the gas, slap it in the gear, and hit the gas.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that big of a timing issue for you if it takes an extra half a second to pop it in the gear and then hit the gas. It's not like you guys are necessarily you're not slicing it down to tenths at this moment. Tenths of a second off of a lap at this moment. You're just trying to kind of get a good idea of how to generally drive fast, and you can add the flashy bells and whistle stuff like matching rails on the way, as you continue to develop.
Well,
So that's one thing to try.
I think it's, a lot of what I'm just trying to get a good line and getting where I can hit the corner right. Because if you can do it right and hit it at the right spot, then everything goes smoothly, and then you just increase your speed from there. So, that's kind of where my focus is, just getting a good line.
And when you don't, you're telling yourself all the way through, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh
Right,
crap, oh
you
crap.
know when you screwed up.
Except you're not using the crap word.
Right.
That's sometimes me on the racetrack when I just feel like I'm pushing that edge.
Oh, Frank, oh, Frank, oh, Frank.
That's right. And that's what I'm telling myself.
Those,
I know that I'm like freaked out behind the wheel just a little bit, and I'm past my comfort zone, but I still have the control of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying to myself. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. That really wasn't so bad. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. I'm not using the crap word though.
It sounds to me like part of the things that could be adding stress to YouTube sort of developing speed is all the sequencing with the shifting, which I'm just saying.
It's all sequencing.
At least for right now, you can just pop your foot on the brake as hard as you can. Just pop it in neutral, pop it on the brakes as hard as you can. Just grab the gear on the way out. I think that's just as useful as anything else. But that way, you're not thinking about all that stuff on the way in.
I've actually just raced my car all the way around the track, mostly in third and fourth. I mean, through all the turns, have been third flat out, and then flip it over into fourth, unless something has me dropping lower. But
mostly,
I really haven't been so much focused on speed at that point, instead of just working on
doing it correctly.
The track alone.
Right. And that's the thing. I'm not worried about going faster. If it's naturally happening. It's just not on my mind to go faster. I just am going faster.
And no, I'm not worried about you going faster. I'm worried about the impact of you going faster. And
stop.
And trying not. No, not that impact, but I'm just.
Yeah, me too, Bill.
Me too, Bill.
I'm gonna go home now. I've got to go take my foot out of my mouth. I'll be back in a little bit.
I think what's funny is I think the two of you are in the same home, if I'm not mistaken, which is funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a question. I have another question.
Please sleeping in the bathtub tonight. Thank you.
It might stop a bullet. So.
Maybe. And a nuclear bomb from exploding. If you watch that bad movie.
So I got a question for Vicky. You were talking about, you got to Charlotte and the track time wasn't as abundant at Charlotte, and then also at DEs you're only out there for 20 minutes at a time. If you were to rate the productivity of your track time between an endurance race and a DE, which do you think is more productive per minute?
Well, obviously the DE is where your education level is, but you're not getting your seat time. It would have to be a track day when you learn something and then you only get, say, 5 laps.
6 laps, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 5 laps and you're back in the classroom again. You feel like you've almost nailed something, maybe, and then you're back in the classroom and you've learned something else, and now you're kind of working on education and stuff like that. But when you take it out, and I'm not saying so much Charlotte, but going out to a track and driving straight through on that track for, say, an hour, and you're doing laps, and when you haven't hit that turn, you're just like, I can do that turn better. So you focus on mostly on 1 or 2 corners that are the tricky ones. You're getting the seat time to really kind of nail that down.
You get more shots. You get more shots at it.
You get more shots at it. And that's the one thing that, we are getting the education, but we're not getting that track day to really push that home as of yet. I mean, due to COVID, but if we actually had a track season this year, I think Jennifer and I would have advanced pretty far.
So, this is a quick question. I know it's tough with COVID, but are you all able to do good debriefs, like after the session debriefs with your instructors?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
that's something that unless the student's like asking me for it, like I'll usually just bounce out of the car and take off. Of course, also unless it's a student who's making great strides, that will sit and talk for a minute. But that is another way to kind of up the value of your DE time. If you have an instructor in the car or outside of the car working with you, with whom you're connecting, it's definitely worth asking for more of their time and saying, hey, talk to me some more. Another thing to think about in my experience with NASA has been that since they have so much going on with their weekends with time trialing, competition, DE sessions, the sessions tend to be very short. I mean, NASA's also a business, so they're like, all right, this many minutes per track is this many dollars, but so you're not going to get any extras or any frills with NASA
and
as far
that's
as track time.
expected.
But yeah, which is totally fine. But it is what it is with NASA, which has plenty of value. In other words, one of their big values is not just unlimited track time or a bunch of time out there. And also, it's been my experience with NASA that if somebody in one of the racing groups has a big off or a big wreck, they're going to kind of chop the time out of everybody else's sessions, but they're not going to shorten the races. I mean, those people are paying the most to be there anyway. But they're not going to chop it out of your next race time. They're going to whittle that time out of DE sessions. So there could be even more. There could be even more time to be lost in a DE and a NASA. I love NASA. I'm not saying anything bad about that, but just they don't have the most robust track sessions. So I think you're out there for maybe 17 minutes, ideally, like the last time I ran with them. It's been a while, but so I said it to say there's a lot to learn at NASA. There's a lot to learn about competition.
Oh yeah, I'm not knocking NASA's at all.
But what I'm also saying is there may also be more local groups who have less of a structure than NASA and less going on that are just track day groups where you might get a little bit longer track sessions. So in our region we've got Track Club USA and the SVT Cobra Club, and those guys. It's not always the exact same kind of cars we would be out there racing with, but for a DE, it's great. And so we can go run long sessions, and if I instruct, I can just go drive whatever car with any of the run groups, and I can take people out in the car if we have a passenger seat. So there are some groups with more loose time frames, and there are some groups where they'll open up for big longer sessions on track on Sunday when everybody takes off. So might be a group where it's like, hey, we're going to open it up for 90 minutes for novice and intermediate, and then 90 minutes for instructors in advanced. So so there are groups where you'll still have more productive as far as learning track time, but it's not a race. But it's not 7 minutes on track. Like, crap, I got 3 laps and half of those, half of it was yellow. So there's a happy medium where you can get a bunch of track time with the track group. You just kind of got to find one in your area that fits. There are people you like being around, and they have good long sessions on track.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. I just want you to be careful as you're getting faster, to realize you're getting faster. Because you are getting faster. You don't even realize how much faster.
Yeah, shift points are a great way to kind of be aware, just a really rough reference point. Like, oh crap, I'm shifting to the 4th already. I better maybe get into the brakes a little sooner because I had to grab 4th so much sooner, right?
Yep.
I know. I'm pretty happy.
It's a good problem to have, right?
It is a good problem. All of this is a good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely.
That's right. So, Ben, thank you. How would people follow along, assuming you get post-COVID and you actually start driving again? What's the best way to follow you?
Let's see.
Instagram, Ben Dawson 3.
Is it?
It is.
Yep. Ben Dawson 3. Ben Dawson and the number 3. BENDAWSON. The number 3, right. Like Earnhardt. And I'm on Facebook somewhere. And then let's see. I'm on
probably
Twitter.
Ben Dawson. You're on Twitter?
On Twitter, I'm at Ben Dawson 258, and you can try to get me up over 280 something followers.
Woohoo!
I'm huge on there.
I don't even. I think we have a Twitter. I don't ever use
people
it.
You people do have a Twitter. I followed it.
Do we?
Yes, you do.
All right. Awesome.
But yeah, I'm often talking about racing and stuff like that. Anywhere you can find me on social media, or racing, or my precious child, about to be children. That's the kind of stuff you'll see if you follow me around. A lot of race car stuff.
She's a cutie.
Thank you.
No worries. Well, thank you, Ben. That was the first ever live Dominating with Dawson.
That was really exciting.
It was.
It was awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Very good.
I have so much fun following along with you all as you're developing and you're driving, because I've been at this so long. There's not a lot of nuance to it, so it's fun to follow along with you guys, and hopefully I'm able to help newer racers and drivers out there.
Excellent.
Well, we figured if we could do it, anybody can. So
Anybody.
and literally, just to remind you all, I'm a Latin major and a total idiot. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that was my thought getting into all this. Was like, hey, I'm going to try to go get a go-kart because I think I've watched racing forever and I think I'm good at it. I just went and got it, tried it. It was a relatively low buy-in, but that was my deal too. I was like, hey, I mean, once I got going, I was like, look at this. If I can do it, literally anybody can do it for sure. So get on out there.
Four examples. 4 examples.
That's right.
That's right. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks,
All right. Thank you
Ben.
guys. Thanks for having me.
That was a good one. I like that one.
All right. That was fun. Yeah. Sorry about cheating. I'm sorry about cheating at the Pinewood Derby. I also cheated at go-karts, but I didn't say that on the podcast. And hey, I don't know how you guys selectively let weird shit play after the podcast. Are you aware of this? Like sometimes there's like 10 minutes of stuff, like 10 minutes of random conversation. Do you do that purposefully? Do you put good snippets down? Because it's never anything that I've been embarrassed about. But it's never anything I was expecting to hear on the podcast either.
Yeah, that's his blooper reel.
So that's on purpose, right?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, surely this can't be an accident.
It takes me longer to edit those than it does the other ones.
Yeah.
Because there was that one where we were talking about the Christina Lamb episode. I was like,
Yep.
It was awesome. And then Vicky did great with the questions. I was like, how did that just happen to rise to the whatever randomness this is? I was really happy to hear it, but I was like, God, I've said some weird shit in there too. I hope that's not just going to pop out somewhere.
Nope.
No.
Nope. I've only had 2 where Jennifer called and said, you need to edit that. I'm like, okay.
You had what? Say that again?
You called me up or texted me the next day saying, you need to edit that section. I'm like, okay, no problem.
I've definitely gotten myself fired 20 times on this podcast for my actual job, if anybody was listening from my job.
Well, luckily for you, nobody listens to our podcast, so you're fine.
But that's another thing. People actually do listen to this, right? Like, I mean, there's
They
people
do.
more than just podcast people. Because because I was texting like my team, I was like, yeah, I got to do the thing. Like, oh, I love Garage Heroes. Like, is it 20s or hundreds of people? Like, what?
It depends. I mean, I think
20s or hundreds of people, he says.
Is it fives? Is it fives of people?
It's I think our biggest one is like 600.
Okay.
That's
And
crazy.
what country are we really popular in?
Well,
Sweden. Who's that guy from
are you
Sweden?
are you saying popular or get a lot of downloads? Because I'm not
Get
sure.
a lot of
popular.
We might be targeted. We might be targeted in those countries.
It seems like U.S. biggest because all our families are here, and then Canada's next, and then
It was something really random.
yeah, we got a couple but we love everybody who does listen.
Absolutely. Oh, this is going to be on one now. Now I can tell you. I can tell that you did that. This is going to be on one.
That's right. Don't forget Erling. Erling listens. Erling, don't drive the bus into a wall. We said his name. He's all happy.
Watch out, Erling.
That's right. So we have a good time. We're gonna have a guest on probably next week. He's got a podcast. I met him at the NASA HPDE. So he's like, "Oh, I got 3 podcasts." I'm like, "Oh, cool." He's like, "So how many do you get? How many downloads do you get?" I'm like, "Oh, depends. Depends on how it goes." He's like, "Well, one of mine gets 600,000," and I'm like,
Oh,
Oh, that's a blow to your ego.
I'm like, we're slightly smaller.
I went from being scared to listen to the podcast to like listening to every second of every one that comes out. Like I don't care what I listen to when I see a new Garage Heroes. I'm like, flap. Let's listen to every second of that and see what they did. What did you people do? Let's see. Here we
We
go.
got our truck caught on fire.
Let's see. Let's see what joke happened this week.
Exactly, because there's always one. At least.
There's going to come a day when they're going to listen to our podcast. We can go back and look how far we've come.
That's right.
They're absolutely. I mean, right now you can go back and see how far you've come. I don't mean.
Time where I couldn't even get up the hill.
I know.
That's a good problem to have that you guys are this far along.
Getting stuck on the hill in New Hampshire. and the flag workers just raised their hand above their head and cheered you because you managed to get the car started.
You should have heard me on.
Were you stalling it because he didn't know how to drive a clutch? Is that what the deal was?
Yeah, she didn't know how to drive. Yeah, she drove the clutch for like 3 or 4 days. And Bill put her in a race car.
So she's
She's
New
like,
Hampshire. You got to do a.
I know. Yeah.
And you
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I'm talking to her on the radio, and I'm like, "All right, put your right foot on the brake pedal, push the left." Push the left one.
Christened by fire.
Start letting up on the left one and just move your right foot to the gas pedal and hammer it. And she did it, and she chick. I'm like, see. So.
The flag workers are like,
my friend's telling me I learned how to drive stick shift in the city, and I'm like,
I learned it.
Thompson
in the rain.
I've just got a little bit of reference point for you people as far as hitting the standing ovation from your corner worker. My very first track event at VIR, I went sideways through was a really fast corner called South Bend. The instructor was like, "This is a fast corner. You can go faster through here." So then I finally went faster, and I got sideways, and I caught it like sideways. My first track day ever, I'm sliding through a really fast corner, caught it, and then I got a standing ovation from the people at Oak Tree when there wasn't actually an oak tree there. So that was my first track day. I was like, I am on my way. Here we go.
Yeah, but you didn't stall it in the middle of catching your car.
Nah, but also I showed up to road racing already knowing how to drive a stick and already knowing how to be. I mean, I was used to racing this close to people on go-karts. You were always hitting somebody in a go-kart. Like go-karting was just like this the whole time on track. So it was like front to back, side to side, all the time hitting people. So I was not scared to be close to people when I got to doing Ds and stuff like that. It's like somebody would come by like, oh, sorry, I got close to you in that corner. I was like, what? I don't know.
That's the difference. Everybody's scared to get close to us.
Yeah. And I try to make sure that people are very scared to be close to me too. Like it's just all about your body language, right?
Go ahead, mess with this big old truck. See what happens. See who wins this. You bring your little neon this way. Come on.
Oh, when we get our S10 belt, it's gonna blow everybody's minds. It's just you have no idea.